welcome. And I want to call the June 17th zoning meeting for the City of Charlotte to order. And now we'll go ahead and have introductions, and we'll start with our Assistant City Attorney.
Senior Assistant City Attorney Terry Hagler-Gray.
Happy Pride Month, LaWanda Mayfield, Council Member at Large.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Happy Juneteenth week, Dante Anderson, Mayor Pro Tem, District 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vi Lyles, and I serve as mayor.
Liz Babson, Assistant City Manager.
Good evening, everyone. James Mitchell, and I serve City Council at large.
Good evening, I am Marjorie Molina. I represent District 5.
Stephanie Kelly, City Clerk.
All right. We begin our meeting with an invocation, and I think that the plan was that Councilmember Brown would provide that today, but she is, I believe, still outside of... She's coming. She's on her way. Well, why don't we say that, I'll just tell you that we celebrate our diversity of religious context and participation. And so we want you to know that while we are having Councilmember Brown provide words of unity and celebration of our ability to work together, we will then proceed. So, yes, please. I want to recognize Councilmember Brown, who will give us words of wisdom this afternoon before we start our meeting. Following our Councilmember Brown's participation in this, we will then start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and feel free to participate if you choose.
Our seas are oppressed.
You ready? It's my time. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. It is an absolute pleasure to serve at the dais and be amongst my colleagues. Today, I just want to share a few words from my heart about community, love, and making someone else feel better. Doing something different than we did the day before. Over the last couple of months, my family's been going through it. You know, we've lost 2 members in our family, and so it's been a very, very difficult and challenging time. And I don't want to dwell on that because then I'll be crying and in tears. But what I did want to share was that we don't know our last day. We don't know the hour or the day that we're going to leave here. And some of us live like we're going to be here forever. Just forever and ever and ever and ever. I don't know what your faith is. I don't know what your biblical beliefs are, who you believe in, who you look up to for inspiration. I'm born and raised in a Baptist church, 1243 West Boulevard, Greater Mount Sinai Baptist Church, my entire life. I rededicated my life back to Christ, I think it was about maybe 4 or 5 Sundays ago. I've always been embedded in the church, is where I come from. It's my roots, it's my history. But I wanted to do something that would make me more accountable and more aware of how I treat people. I know I go out in the community and I hear people saying, oh, you're doing such an amazing job and you represent the people and you do well. But when I look in the mirror, there's always something we can do better. And so when I see that image in the mirror, I'm looking to see and push past that and see how I can be a better individual. How I can create and spread love from myself into the universe. And I was born that way. I learned that from my grandmother. I learned that from my mother. I learned that from all the strong Black women in my family that raised me. I want to leave you with this. When you think that it can't be you, that's when it can be. And I think that we all need to just take a look in the mirror, everybody, including myself, and do something better than we did the day before. You don't know what it's like to walk in a person's shoes, and so therefore we should not be judgmental. We should not be mocking people. We should not think that we're better than anybody else, because we're simply not. It doesn't matter how much money you have in bank account. It doesn't matter how big your house is. It doesn't matter where you live at, where you come from. just remember, we are not here forever. Make a difference. Do something better than you did the day before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. If you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance if you choose. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin our meeting, I'd like to take a moment to explain the zoning process. And so the process begins with applications submitted to the planning staff for review. There are two types of cases that are on the agenda: decisions and hearings. Decisions on the cases for which a public hearing was previously held, there will be no further public comment. So if you are coming to speak about the Panthers rezoning, we will not be able to have you speak publicly, but you're welcome to sit through the discussion at the dais. In our hearings, if you wish to speak when we're having a hearing, please make sure that you've signed in with the clerk or have your ability or know when you're going to speak with our clerk before we start. In this process, we will have a staff presentation on the rezoning petition, and the staff has no time limit. The petitioner and those in favor get 3 minutes combined to present the case unless their opponents sign up to speak. If the staff is in opposition or the petitioner gets 10 minutes, opponents get 10 minutes combined, and the petitioner gets a 2-minute rebuttal. If no one is opposed or sign up to speak, the staff will give us a short presentation, and then we will close the public hearing and go to the next item. The petitions that we have, and the hearings that we did today, will be going to the zoning committee zoning committee of the Planning Commission for review and recommendation. And now I'd like to introduce the chair, Douglas Welton, to introduce members of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Douglas A. Welton, and I serve as the chairman of the Zoning Committee of the Planning Commission. Allow me to introduce the fellow members of the Zoning Committee, and they include Will Russell, Shauna Neely, Rick Winokur, Terry Lansdale, Rebecca Wilden, and Clayton Seeley. The Zoning Committee will meet on Tuesday, July 9th at 5:30 p.m. At that meeting, the Zoning Committee will discuss and make recommendations on the petitions that have a public hearing here tonight. The public is welcome to that meeting, but please note, it is not a continuation of the public hearing that is being held here tonight. Prior to that meeting, you are welcome to contact us and provide input. You can do this by finding our contact information and information on each petition at the city's website, charlotteplanning.org. Thank you, and back to you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask Mr. Pettin, who works with us on our zoning meetings, and we have some deferrals and some withdrawals, and so Mr. Pettin, would you please tell us about the items that will be in the motion to defer or withdraw?
Yes, thank you. We've got a few items that we have for deferral this evening. The first item is item number 13. That's 2022-224 by SRL Central Ave Properties. That decision is being requested deferral. They were listed in the agenda inadvertently as September 16th. It should be August 19th. So that petition is requesting a decision be deferred to August 19th. Then we get into item number 22, which is a petition by the City of Charlotte for approximately 49 acres along Pine Oaks Drive and south of Byram Drive, also requesting a deferral of their public hearing to August 19th. And then finally, two other items. Item number 28, which is petition 2023-165 by Central Avenue Multifamily LLC, and item number 31, 2024-015 by BV Belk Properties. Both of those petitions also requesting deferral to August 19th for their public hearing. That's all we have this evening. Thank you.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept the information as presented by Mr. Pettin for the referrals and withdrawals? Someone?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? All right, that helps us get through to the next one. We also have a consent agenda, and in the consent agenda, we have petitions that qualify for the category that they're in, items 3 through 12, which may be considered in one motion except for those that a council member would like to have a separate vote. These petitions had to follow the following criteria. They had no public opposition at the petition at hearing. The zoning committee recommended approval, and there are no changes to the zoning committee's recommendation, and staff recommends approval. Is there an item that the council member would like to have for a separate vote? Ms. Mayfield.
Item 11, Mayor.
Item 11. Anyone else? Hearing none, then can we have a motion to approve consent items 3 through 12 with the exception of 11?
So moved.
So moved,
Please, we have
second.
a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of approval of those petitions, please raise your hand. All right, so we have submitted those, and now we'll go to item 11, which is, I have 9 over here. 11 is petitions, zoning rezoning petition 2024-21 by Foundry Commercial, which is approximately 10 acres on the east side of Steel Creek. The current zoning is a neighborhood 1A. The proposed zoning is manufacturing and logistics 2 with an airport noise overlay. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition, and now I would like to recognize Councilmember Mayfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge that I know Councilmember Brown, who is the district rep, and myself received the correspondence, but there was a question regarding the cemetery and who would actually maintain the cemetery, and I will also like to acknowledge that from my understanding and from communication, in regards to the petitioner, they worked out with Councilmember Brown and the community a possible relocation of an important building, but also the cemetery itself, the maintaining, and just want to make sure that it is on the record that the church will maintain the maintenance of the cemetery, which we know is something that is very important. That was the only thing I would like to highlight. Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve the petition. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the recommendation to adopt this petition, please raise your hands. Anyone in opposition? That carries. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Patton, now that we've gone through our consent agenda, we will now move to the zoning decisions that we have. Item 14, which is rezoning petition 2024-033 by the Planning Commission. Planning, Design, and Development, it is a text amendment. Is there a motion? Mr. Patton, I thought earlier today we talked about there's a partnership in this effort with something that the council has already adopted in terms of the conservation as well as watershed. Is there any comment that we would like to be aware of for the?
That'll be related to the public hearing item we have further for another
hearing.
text amendment. This is
Sorry.
basically a cleanup text amendment that's going for this decision.
Item 14. Okay. Okay, so the rezoning petition 2024 is the text amendment. All in favor, please.
Do we have the motion?
We have make a motion.
And a second.
We have a motion and a second.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the item, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Sorry, I had that listed as something else. The next item is item 15, rezoning petition 2022-121 by RK Investments Charlotte for approximately 53 acres located on the east side of Elm Lane, on the west side of Ray Road. The current zoning is N1 neighborhood. The proposed zoning is urban residential conditional with 5-year vested rights. The zoning committee voted 5-1, and the staff recommends approval of this petition. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Which one was it?
It's yours.
They were a couple
It's
of them.
yours.
I'd like to be able to make that motion.
Okay, and we have a second by the Mayor Pro Tem and a motion made by Mr. Driggs.
Mayor,
Is,
I just want to make sure we're including the consistency statement.
oh, that's right. Our statement of consistency as well. Let's go back to the petition that we had for the Planning Commission, we must amend our vote. Please raise your hand to include the statement of consistency as our own. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Now, let's go to the rezoning petition. I want to recognize Mr. Driggs.
Thank you,
For
Mayor.
15.
I think everybody knows this one has been a year and a half in the making. It was hard not to know about it. Very high profile, a lot of discord, frankly. In the end, we did arrive at a resolution that involved cutting the number of units initially proposed by half, preserving the benefits of the original petition in terms of tree save, which is now up to 32%. All the traffic improvements that were approved for 1,100 units are going to stay in place for the 556 currently there. The pond will remain. There will be green barriers on both major roads. So I think this is a good result. I'm sure there are still people who aren't completely satisfied, partly because a lot of people would love to have seen this preserved as a beautiful patch of unspoiled nature in the middle of all the development. But that's not really a choice we had. We had to decide whether to go with the final version of this petition or with by right development, which would not have offered those advantages. So I sent to you, colleagues, and to the public at large a more detailed description of the features of the final outcome and what the comparison with by right would look like. I think it's a pretty open and shut case, so I hope you will join me in supporting it. I did want to say a thank you to a number of people on this. I'd like to single out Tom Coyne, a resident who kind of spearheaded the effort on behalf of all residents to improve the terms of the petition. And he convened a steering committee early on. There were about 12 or 15 members of that from HOA boards. Also convened a meeting of about 60 HOA board members to look at the final proposal and consider whether it was preferable to the by right development. There was a vote of 36-7 among those who voted in favor of proceeding. City staff put in an exceptional effort here, and Dave, thank you, and others who came down to several meetings in order to provide the city perspective on traffic issues and other questions that residents had, and I think supported the conclusion that the outcome we have would be better than by right. The petitioner did acknowledge and finally accede to a lot of the demands or the concerns of residents. I want to especially shout out to Tom Brassi, who came in and helped to get the entire conversation onto a good track. John Carmichael and Mac McCarley, who represented the petitioner and did their best to be intermediaries there. So, and finally, the residents. I think that all of that energy that came out against the initial proposal did have the effect of making it possible to achieve the improvements that we have. So with that, colleagues, I'd like to recommend this for approval.
Thank you. I'm going to recognize Ms. Ajmira.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First, let me just thank the district rep. I remember when we had this rezoning petition many months ago, and how it started out with 1,100 units. Now we are down to 566. Certainly that shows tremendous work that's gone into this. The HOA leaders, I had an opportunity to meet with Kim Hobbs and her group, along with Tom, who was representing the petitioner. Certainly I struggled with this one in the beginning, but I'm very happy with the outcome in terms of the tree save, the density, traffic improvements. So I think this is really a good example of collaboration, and hope to see many more of that. So I'd be in support. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say a thank you to the community. I was invited out to Mr. Driggs' district to meet with several community members and talk through their perspectives and their challenges. And I heard them loud and clear. And I just want to also just thank Mr. Driggs. He's been working on this for a very long time. We all have If we haven't had a pressing, stressful petition, we all will as district reps, and this is just one of Mr. Driggs, and I think he handled it with class, listening to both sides of the perspective and trying to fight for the best outcome of his district. So I will be supporting Mr. Driggs and supporting this petition this evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Are there any other comments to be made? So if there are no other comments, we have a motion to approve the rezoning and accept the zoning committee statement of consistency as our own. All in favor, please raise your hands. I believe that's unanimous, but just to ensure, let me check. Is there anyone who's opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. All right, the next item is item 16, petition 2023-033 by CRD Elizabeth LLC. Talk about, let's have these come up right together here. Approximately 1.6 acres located along the northeast side of East 7th Street, south of Lamar Avenue and north of Clement. It's in District 1. It is, current zoning is general commercial. The proposed zoning is mixed-use development district optional. Zoning committee voted 5-1 to approve, and the staff recommends approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to approve this petition and accept the zoning committee statement of consistency as our own?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mayor, Ms. Ajmira?
I'll let her go first.
No, she said please. Okay.
Well, this one has been a difficult one, and the reason this one has been a difficult one because the Elizabeth Community Association has been divided. When we had first started, I mean, this was the hearing last month, and since then, the staff is supporting it. Certainly, there has been more progress that has been done on this rezoning petition. I did hear and talk to some folks that are in opposition. I've also talked to some neighbors that are in support of it, that are very passionate. I did read former Mayor Clotfelter's 6-page document that you sent as to why we should not support this. And you know, I certainly have great respect for those that sent very passionate email, not just the cookie cutter approach, well, you shouldn't do this or you should do this. And I hear both sides. I hear the side where we need to create more housing closer to public transportation. I also hear the side where we need to preserve neighborhoods' character. I also heard from staff, especially our passionate David Patton and his team, as to why they were not in support and why they are in support of it now. After hearing all of that, as well as the district reps, I'm having to make a tough decision, and I hate to be in this place because either way I make a decision, I'm going to make certain folks unhappy about my decision. But I guess that's what I signed up for. After looking at everything and the progress that's been made, I'm going to support this rezoning petition. And I just would like to thank the staff because of the work that they have done. I think we have been able to make meaningful progress in past couple of weeks. But for those who are in opposition, I think you should all be very proud to live in Elizabeth community. The community, the neighborhood is just so passionate where they come out, people are engaged, they have read through our 600 pages of UDO document. They know in and out about the 2040 plan. And I mean, every single email that I have gotten, majority, I feel like they have done the research. So I commend you all for reaching out. I'm having to make a tough decision. I see you all who are in opposition. In fact, you all know I took your side the last time because I wasn't convinced, but I'm having to make a tough decision today. So to my friends that are in opposition, it's very difficult for me to say no to you, especially Mr. Clotfelter, because you being an attorney, I think you make a very strong case in opposition. But certainly I think I have to look at all the aspects, especially the one where we need such a strong housing supply to address our housing needs. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have shared on more than one occasion that I feel like as we're working on our living document called the UDO and identifying new language, in the meantime, we're seeing a lot of development that for me feels very contradictory to the language and to the commitment that council, current and previous councils have made in regards to neighborhood continuity, staying in place, creating diversity, supporting current community. I will not be supporting this tonight. I have concerns with the height. I have concerns with this development. For me, it is not a benefit or a community good. This is just my personal opinion with the lead, with a fee in lieu. When we're getting multifamily developments, those developments have the opportunity to create diversity in it. We are already seeing some cities across the nation that are having major challenges with a number of multifamily developments that have been approved that are sitting vacant, the impact that it's having on city, seeing a mass exodus of our workforce that cannot afford to move into a lot of these market rate developments gives me concern. But this, I'm quite sure there's enough support around the dais for it to move forward. But for me, this particular project aligns with others that I feel have opened the door, that have created major neighborhood transition, where the residents who have been in this community for decades and or generations are not going to benefit from this. Thank you.
Mayor, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too was one of the individuals or council members that was opposed to it last month, primarily because staff was opposed to it and also because of the height and that changing the complexion or the trajectory or setting a precedent in the neighborhood. But I've spoken with Mr. Pettin, and I wanted to know if you could share what we discussed earlier as far as the building height and your reason for supporting now.
Sure. So one of the things we had some concerns with, I know last month we talked a little bit about height along that corridor and the request that was in for the 78 feet. When we look long-term at the corridor, it's zoned or recommended for a neighborhood center place type, which gets recommended heights anywhere from 65 feet at the base up to 80 feet, and that 80 feet is achieved through a different type of potential public benefit options like inclusion or contribution for affordable housing efforts, inclusion of minority businesses for construction, extra open space. There's quite a host of things that folks can do to get beyond that 65 feet up to 80. So as we think about that corridor, and we had some more time with the petition, a lot more internal conversation on it after the decision was deferred last month. We look at the long-term outcomes that are potential in that corridor, we could start to see buildings that get to 65 and up to that 80 feet under that neighborhood center, particularly if we are going through an alignment rezoning, let's say in a couple years for that, that will align that corridor to that zoning district that does achieve those heights. So looking at it from the standpoint of saying 65 feet and now they're requesting that 78 and they're providing that 78 through an equivalent type of public benefit with the contribution to affordable housing, that aligns it a little bit better with the UDO goals or the UDO standards and the comp plan goals. And that's really the challenge with these legacy district petitions, trying to kind of plug them into a new set of guidelines and rules. And we feel like with those latest conversations and those latest changes, that did bring it a little bit closer aligned with the goals and outcomes of the corridor there and the comprehensive plan. So that's where staff looked at this with a little bit different lens this month.
So the petitioner is contributing affordable housing?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, do you want to share, do you want to share what they're doing?
It is a monetary contribution to the Housing Trust Fund. I believe the amount is, it's about $100,000. No, it's $132,439.50.
Okay. I'd like to thank you, and I think this is a great example of what happens when the petitioners work with staff and work to make these concessions, how the council is listening to the community. I think this is a great demonstration. So I will be supporting it also because of those concessions and because of the contribution to affordable housing and the staff support. Thank you.
I want to recognize Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this is another one that has been a contentious petition, and also one that has had very long community engagement. You know, I have worked with the community on both sides, for it and against it. I've listened to all sides. I've gone out and walked the site and talked to neighbors and walked the driveways and sat in there at their kitchen tables and listened to the different perspectives. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to the Elizabeth community. There's so much engagement there. The ECA is one of my best neighborhood associations. You all should just be incredibly proud of the talent and the depth and knowledge that you have in your neighborhood. I too, of course, read former Mayor Clyde Felter's 6-page email as well as the other emails. We received a deluge of emails this time around, on both sides, and very detailed information, very perspective. I heard from Elizabethans that have owned their home for 35, 40 years, and then I've heard from new Elizabethans who have lived in the neighborhood from 2 to 3 years. All on the affirmative side, many on the opposing side. But what we have before us is an opportunity to bring an incredible building that is architecturally and materially aesthetic and unique and different and will fit right in with the Elizabeth neighborhood along that corridor versus the by right option. The developer has listened and he's continued. I give him credit for being at the table, continuing to incorporate, continuing to work on the best outcome for the neighborhood. So we have a reduction in units, we have an increase in parking ratio, we have subterranean parking that will preclude erosion of neighborhood parking deeper into the neighborhood. For the building height, the aspect of the building that it directly abuts single family is maxed out at 45 feet, so the mass height is at the street level. That's not directly abutting single family. And it is, in addition to thinking about affordable housing. And so the intentionality around this work and this effort over the last year has been great. And I hear, as was mentioned earlier, it's always difficult on these decisions to make a decision, but you always have to keep the best outcome for the community in mind. And I think we've come to a point with the developer where this is the best outcome for the neighborhood. So thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your engagement. You all are going to continue to have difficult petitions in Elizabeth, right? Because growth in the city and proximate to where Elizabeth is, but you have an incredible neighborhood, and I think this building will add to the character and aesthetic of an incredible neighborhood. So I will be supporting this petition this evening as well, Madam Mayor.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor for approval as well as accepting the statement of consistency as our own. All in favor, please raise your hands. All opposed? And one opposed. All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda, and thank you guys up there. Thank you. Hi, Dan. Okay, next item is item 17, rezoning petition 2024-31 by Panther Stadium LLC for approximately 12 acres located on the east side of South Cedar, west of 4th and north of Mint. It's in District 2. The current zoning is mixed-use development, district optional. The proposed zoning is Uptown Edge exception. Zoning Committee recommend, as well as the staff, approval of this petition. But there have been some changes that have occurred since, Mr. Pettin, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Since the Zoning Committee's meeting. And so I'm going to ask the staff to read those changes, and we'll go from there to see if we want to send it back to the Zoning Committee or not.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. This petition did make some additional changes following the zoning committee's recommendation. The first was editing some language regarding a public art feature as an EX benefit or public benefit, that they will collaborate with the Urban Design Center to coordinate the public art feature. Also modified the proposed improvements to the pedestrian path that to specify that the path will be 17 feet wide along the rezoning boundary to accommodate the Uptown Cycle Link project. The path will be 12 feet wide along the majority of the clutch frontage, and it reduces to 10 feet where adjacent to South Cedar Street. Those are due to the existing footprint constraints that are there. And then the South Cedar Street crosswalk will be realigned and restriped, and also clarified that the pedestrian path will not have stairs except those that exist alongside an ADA-compliant sidewalk near Graham Street. The pedestrian path will be installed no later than May 31st, 2025. The final thing that was a change was adding to the existing EX provisions for build-to zones and build-to percentages, as well as the established setbacks notes in case that the pedestrian path is considered a frontage. That is a UDO item that they've chosen to provide a little bit of relief from, and those are the changes. Staff doesn't feel that they are warranted to go back to zoning committee, but that's at y'all's discretion. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions for Mr. Patton about those recommended changes? All right, do we have a motion to accept the staff's recommendation that we not send it back to the zoning committee?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. All right, anyone opposed? Okay. We'll proceed then to now go to the petition, which is staff and zoning committee recommended for approval of this petition, as well and acceptance of the statement of consistency as our own.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of council. Just want to reintroduce the Panther Stadium LLC to the council. Won't be long, but I think it's worthy of public disclosure of what we're doing. First, I would love to thank the Third Ward Neighborhood Association as well as the surrounding communities for really working in conjunction with me and Panther Stadium LLC. I want to thank former council member Al Austin for being a...
He's still there.
He needs to come down here and vote. For being a conduit between Panther Stadium LLC, my city council office, and the Third Ward Neighborhood Association. His help was really, really meaningful and insightful, and many of the recommendations were endorsed by the Third Ward Neighborhood Association via Mr. Austin, so I want to thank him for his work. Also want to thank Carolyn Wright, Christy Coleman, Jeff Brown, and Tamara Green with Panther LLC. This really has been a collaboration and coordination to ensure that Uptown is just not where people go to a game or where people go to eat, but it's also where people live. And we wanted to make sure that the impact of those who call Uptown home, specifically those who live in Third Ward, were not negatively impacted by the rezoning. The petitioner went beyond the initial one community meeting, and there was at least 3 community meetings with neighborhood associations, 2 in person, 1 virtually, as well as a number of one-on-one meetings with with a majority of those who wanted to meet with them, so they were really accessible. The petition itself provides for less intensity than other uses, so it tries to control the intensity of the use. Vehicle traffic to the facility will be somewhat restricted from Cedar Street once the facility is opened, which is something that the neighborhood wanted. The height of the building has been reduced from 95 feet to 70 feet, which is something that we discussed with the neighborhood associations as well. In addition, to continue the ability to access Graham Street from the Cedar Street benefiting Third Ward, Wesley Heights, and other communities have been added to the rezoning plan, and detailed comment to install an enhanced pedestrian connection along the southern boundary of the rezoning. So that's there. The Greenway will not be closed. It never was intended to be closed, and it may be even enhanced for those who travel that path. So that was something that I really want to emphasize to those who are watching at home. In addition, again, we've added comments to the rezoning plan to replace the current privacy fence top along Cedar Street with an improved treatment consisting of composite panel connections, metal trim connecting to brick veneer. So they're going to enhance the appearance of the outside of the building facing Cedar Street, which is something that Mr. Alston and others wanted to see, and that's there. In addition to the requirements under the rezoning as relates to tree preservation, replacement, beautification, within 180 days of approval of the rezoning, the developer will establish with a local financial institution a tree preservation, replacement, and beautification fund in the amount of $60,000 tree beautification fund. They will work with the Neighborhood Association Third Ward Community Leadership by establishing a Third Ward Community Leadership Committee to work with them in reference to how those funds are to be dispersed. They will also retain a tree health arborist to engage the Cedar Street site frontage, in addition to the requirements of the rezoning and the tree beautification fund set aside. So that's really, again, they have taken into heart, again, tree preservation, replacement, beautification with a fund, getting a tree health arborist to engage for Cedar Street site frontage. So again, those things are really taken into consideration. They will continue to work with CMPD regarding monitoring of parking within the Third Ward community. They will have community appreciation activity with the Third Ward Neighborhood Association. They will continue to work through the construction with construction management cooperation in terms of noise and ordinance and those type of requirements to ensure that they have a good fit efforts to inform the Third Ward community when things are impacting as it relates to construction-related activities. They will continue to work with Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation and contribute up to $100,000 to the cost of such work for Mecklenburg County Park in connection with potential for refurbishing of the walking trail track around Frazier Park Field, etc. The field house used as a community asset, and again, they will provide notice for the pedestrian connection. This was really a great example, again, of public-private partnership where the community and Panther Stadium LLC work together to ensure that the residents of Third Ward and surrounding community will be a part of the change and not victims of it. And so I feel real comfortable in asking the members of the council to support the rezoning.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion, and the zoning committee and the staff voted for this, as well as you've heard that we don't need to send back any of the other changes that were made. So with all of that, do we have a motion to accept the zoning committee's statement of consistency as our own and approve this petition?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? No longer needed. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? No one's opposed. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Austin.
All right, the next item is item 18, rezoning petition 2023-112 by FCA LLC for approximately 5 acres on the dead end of Christie Lane, east of Steel Creek. It's in District 3. The current zoning is neighborhood A1 with a noise overlay, and the proposed zoning is manufacturing and logistics. The zoning committee voted 6-0 to recommend approval, and the staff recommends approval as well. Do I have a motion to accept the staff's recommendation along with the zoning committee's recommendation to approve this petition?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Mitchell and a second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? No one in opposition. The next item is 19, which is petition 2023-172 by BVB Properties, approximately 7/10 of an acre located on the southeast section of Mount Holly, Huntersville Road and Loring School Road. It's in District 2. The current zoning is neighborhood business conditional. The proposed zoning is general commercial conditional. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval. Do I have a motion to approve the rezoning petition and accept the statement of consistency as our own?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Graham and second by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there any discussion? Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I've already reached out to the petitioner's representative on this, as I believe the only council member that actually lives over in this area and that will be impacted by this particular development. And as growth happens, Mount Holly Huntersville Road is a 2-lane road. This particular location is right on the corner where there's a turn lane. I do appreciate that, unfortunately, previously what this plot of land was zoned for was a gas station. There's already a gas station on the corner. I appreciate, even though we don't know exactly what, that they are interested in having a drive-through at this location. I've reached out to Mr. Patton and to staff to find out if we can consider some other infrastructure changes, because the entrance to this particular facility, even though it's noted on the map that there will be a side road, it is extremely difficult for those who are trying to enter or exit out. You pretty much need to make a right turn during morning traffic, afternoon traffic, and evening traffic. For those that are attempting to make a left turn in, the reality is if you're driving straight up Mount Holly Huntersville Road, you're going to go past Lawing School Road. That's a very difficult road to access when you're sitting in traffic. The concern that I have is the fact that, again, this is a 2-lane road with a very short right turn lane that will most likely be utilized to access. I will again state that although what this plot previously was zoned for is a gas station, I am glad that the petitioner has an interest in the investment that they made both here and Riverbend. For those that have been out to Riverbend, that is a beautiful site. It's also a little different because the road widens a little more down there. So I'm quite sure my colleagues have already moved to approve and second this motion. I did just want to have it in the record that I'm hoping as we move forward, the petitioners can take into consideration a greater setback to try to accommodate what could happen with how the egress and regress of actually getting access to this site, how that is going to work, because what is noted in the picture basically is, if you were actually looking at it on page 4, that entryway is right in front of another restaurant. So if you're turning in, if they actually happen to have a busy night at that particular restaurant, individuals trying to access into this facility off of Mount Holly, Huntersville versus Lawing, it could cause some challenges. So I would like for them to consider with staff, CDOT, some better option for transportation. Thank you.
All right. We have a motion on the floor. Any other comment? All right, hearing no other comment, all in favor of the motion to approve and accept the statement of consistency, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. The next item is item 20, which is petition 2023-173 by Josiah Bowling for approximately 2 acres located at the southwest intersection of Commercial Avenue and Eastway Drive. It's in District 1. The current zoning is Office Flex Campus. The proposed zoning is Innovation Mixed Use. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to accept the staff and zoning committee's recommendation as well as the statement of consistency?
So moved.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Brown. Thank
Brown
you.
Emily at
All
the
right,
same time.
thank you. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Hearing no one opposing, the next item on our agenda is petition 2024-03 by APCO Properties, Inc., a location of 16.9 acres on the west side of Old Statesville Road and north on the side of Ratcliffe Lane. The current zoning is general commercial and manufactured home park, with the proposed zoning is neighborhood 2A conditional and N2A CD. The zoning committee and the staff recommend approval of this petition. Do I have a motion to accept the zoning committee and the staff's statement of consistency as our own? Do I have a motion?
It's yours.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Graham and Mr. Driggs as a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hands. All right, thank you very much. That passes.
Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Mayfield? Did I hear you?
Opposed?
I'm sorry.
Any opposed?
Would anyone be opposed? Ms. Mayfield is opposed, so opposed. Thank you. All right. I believe that ends all of our decisions. We are going to now move in to the petitions that have hearings tonight. Mr. Pettin, is that correct? We are in the right order at the right time?
That's correct. Thank you.
All right, so the first one is rezoning the deferrals. Do we have any other deferrals besides those that we've already approved?
None that we've already approved. No additional.
Okay, so we're going, item 22 has been deferred. The next item is item 23. It is rezoning petition 2024-67 by Charlotte Planning, Design, and Development. It is a text amendment. But has he signed up for it? Okay. Madam Clerk, I don't not see my list of people that have signed up to speak.
This is an additional speaker, Mayor, that's come in since
Okay.
the list was published.
He was a little bit late, right? Okay, that's good. We got you covered. All right, I'm going to let Mayor Pro Tem take this one and go from there.
Okay, we'll start with agenda item number 23, petition number 2024-067 by Charlotte Planning, Design, and Development text amendment. The purpose of this UDO text amendment is to provide a new compact residential option, section 4.5, for certain neighborhood 1 zoning districts. This option will allow smaller lot sizes and setbacks and will require more usable common open space. There are proposed changes in 3 of the 39 UDO articles. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and after staff's presentation, we do have Mr. Joseph Margolis, Margolis, who will speak against this particular petition. So, Mr. Margolis, if you would like to come down after staff's presentation, so you'll be ready to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So this petition 2024-067, as mentioned, is a text amendment. We've talked a lot about residential development with y'all over the last several months, particularly with the need for development taking on different lotting patterns, different types of development patterns that we've seen recently in contexts that we've not seen historically in our previous ordinances, and even when we in some ways envisioned how the UDO would be set up. So last meeting and just earlier this evening, we talked about some text amendments. We talked about conservation development. That was something we modified through a text amendment not too many meetings ago. And so when we talked about conservation, we talked a lot about trying to put something in place that could help to create some outcomes that were similar, but some outcomes that were a little bit more favorable and more desirable from staff's perspective, given the trend that we saw under the conservation types of outcomes. So with that, we've got a compact residential development option that's being proposed for this text amendment. And again, that's a new development option that's needed. We're trying to be responsive to market trends, as well as financing options for new subdivisions. That includes things like smaller lots, smaller unit types, more attached buildings. And this would primarily be found in the base neighborhood 1 zoning districts, and those standards reflect the lot patterns of existing neighborhoods. So we've gotten asked that question quite a bit. Why not just take the standards of all the N1 districts and change those? Well, we don't want to necessarily change all the existing lotting patterns of some of those neighborhoods that translated from the R3s and R4s to the N1As and N1Bs. So when we get into applicability, again, this would be permitted in N1A, B, C, and D. In those zoning districts, it would be on development that must be over 2 acres. Also cannot be on properties that are in the recently published airport noise exposure map, the critical and protected watershed areas, and also no more than 25% of the lots in this development option would be allowed to have triplexes, and that would be applicable just in N1A and N1B. Also in N1A and B, developments of 2 acres or more, they could see those amounts of triplexes increase if they use the voluntary mixed income residential option. So as we get into some of the development standards, this development option, again, this is an option that is in place for folks to take advantage of if they see that their project could use it, would reduce the setback standards for buildings, it would reduce minimum lot area and lot width, it would eliminate maximum building coverage standards. It would require a Class B landscape yard around the entire perimeter of the project when they're adjacent to another neighborhood 1 place type. That would be a 25-foot wide landscape yard, commonly referred to in the past as a buffer. Also requires all lots to front on a public street or common open space, and also limits the use of alleys as primary access for units. If you recall, that was something that we were seeing that we had some concerns about in conservation. This would limit that to some degree and get some more favorable outcomes. Again, common open space standards. Minimum of 10% of the project must be common open space. It must also meet 15% for a green area requirement. Common open space would have to be 50 feet in all dimensions at minimum, and at least 1 common open space area should be accessible from all residential lots within 1,000 feet. And then common open space must be improved with landscaping, hardscape, or usable outdoor amenities. So those are the big changes that we put in place. Again, this is something that we have put in front of everyone here to somewhat kind of not take the place of conservation, but we know we made some changes to that. We heard some feedback that that was going to have some negative impacts on getting additional housing supply and also meeting some of the new market trends and demands that we're seeing in residential development. So this compact option is something that we're putting forward that we feel provides some similar outcomes, but in some ways that helps to again, avoid some of those things that we didn't like to see with overuse of alleys, which puts a pretty significant burden on homeowners for maintenance long-term. Got some better open space requirements, I think, in this compact option as well. So those are the things that we're putting in place to, again, not take the place of conservation, because conservation still does exist on the books, but it's been changed fairly significantly. This is something that will be another option that folks could utilize to, again, meet some of those market trends and demands and continue to see some positive housing supply increases for us throughout the city.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Mr. Margolis, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. Good to see you again. I promise I will not be taking the entire 10 minutes to make my points. I've been participating in work on the UAC, and so I've been studying this issue, and so I'm opposed to this because it's one thing that one thing that I feel like comes from good intentions is that from this dais is that I see a tendency to want to use your power to create as much certainty for the good of us as your constituents as possible. That's what I believe each and every one of you, and that's the point of view that each and every one of you is working from. But just as I've dove into this and learned more and more about it, I think the more we need more uncertainty in the marketplace. And what I mean by that is we need more opportunities. We need less design requirements, things like that, and more opportunity, because this is going to lead to less affordable housing. And for me, I live in a neighborhood that basically, it was built years ago, but it's has alleyways. There's no city-maintained streets in my neighborhood. It's a condo community. And it's an N2B parcel, and 7 acres, has 104 condos on it. And the result of this is that there are 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath condos that are selling for about $200,000 to $240,000 on this property. And right now, so that's the missing middle housing. It's not great. It's not the prettiest housing in the world. But if you were to ask me, living there, what really makes me uncomfortable about living there, it's how cut off I am by the 2 stroads that were built on top of my neighborhood. Not some of the discomforts that I've traded off to live where I live. And so I feel like that what would be better is if you rewrote this had staff rewrite this text amendment to meet the conditions that were considered the loophole in the text amendment for the conservation to allow more of these properties to take place. If you needed to put other conditions on acreages to make sure that they happen in other places, I think that would be helpful. I don't know what it would be, but I just think that this is going to be it's going to cost more to develop this. There's going to be less less tax value per acre, so that's going to be less money coming into the city's coffers. And so the city should be considering those sort of things when they're making these types of decisions as well. And another thing I'd like to see on a text amendment would be, in as many places as opportune, eliminate parking requirements. Like, there's very few parcels. I looked at the map. There's very few available opportunities where it might make sense. But if you were to eliminate parking requirements and someone wanted to do a compact development in Prosperity Village, they probably wouldn't be producing a very marketable product if they didn't put driveways in there on the properties, because there's no buses from Prosperity Village to Uptown or anything like that. So what I'm asking you to do is vote no on this and maybe dive in and get a little more wonky with the policy making and just see what things you can do. Because if you take away parking requirements, you can make housing more affordable just by giving a developer more developable land to build housing on. So they have more units per acre, therefore the cost can be shared among the homeowners. So you guys should just be really diving into this, and I highly recommend that you get into, if you haven't done it, start reading up the Strong Towns book series and the podcast, because they really do dive into a lot of things that are really nonpartisan, just market-based solutions that can help. Because just from what I'm hearing, even I like the idea of having affordable housing opportunities, but when I talk to the developers about it, it's just not marketable for their products for them to consider them very often. So you guys have to attack it from a market-based standpoint too. And since we don't have and I hope you guys will encourage a strong community of business community of incremental developers to do these type of small bets when you get to the infill work. But while we don't have those, this is what we have to live with, and you can get so if you allow things with more developers to have more concessions to build alleyways, you're going to get a cheaper product. If you allow for less parking, if you allow for a text amendment that eliminates parking requirements, you're going to get a cheaper product for the residents, and you're going to get more tax value for the city and the county. So that's my reason why I think you should vote no. I don't think you should just scrap it. I just think you should go back to the drawing boards. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Margolis. Mr. Patton, did you have anything else to add?
Thank you, sir.
Unless there's a specific question, no, I'll just let his comment stand. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? That's unanimous. We'll go on to agenda item number 24, petition number 2024-029 by Embry Development Company. The location of approximately 19.81 acres located on the south side of Alexandria Road, east side of Statesville Road, and west of Twin Lakes Parkway, north of north of I-485 in the ETJ, closest to District 1, Ms. Powell's district, and the Board of County Commission, and closest to Ms. Johnson, District 4 for Charlotte City Council. The current zoning is OFC. Proposed zoning is IMU-CD. Staff does not recommend approval of this petition, and after staff's presentation, we'll have Ms. Bridget Grant. There's no opposition, so Ms. Grant, you'll have 3 minutes to present. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. 2024-029 is just under,
Just a clarification, since staff does not recommend, Ms. Grant will have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yes, thank you. So yes, 2024-029 is just under 20 acres, Statesville Road and Alexandriana Road, really at the edge of the Charlotte boundary, right before you get on the north side into Huntersville. The property is currently zoned OFC, and the proposed zoning is for IMU conditional, innovative mixed use. You can see we've got some OFC in industrial, ML1 and I1 CD zoning in the general area. The blue along Sam Roper is also OFC. The adopted place type for this area, you can see manufacturing, logistics, and innovation mixed use are the predominant two land use recommendations. Again, everything to the north is Huntersville. That's why you don't see any land use recommendations from the city on that side of the road. The proposal would allow up to 350 multifamily stacked dwelling units to provide access to the site via Twin Lakes Parkway, would dedicate 50 feet of right-of-way along Alexandriana and Statesville Road, and then 31 and a half feet of right-of-way from the Twin Lakes Parkway center line. Would also provide an 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path along Alexandriana Road and Statesville Road, an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along Twin Lakes Parkway, and also provide an 8-foot sidewalk extension from the site along Alexandriana Road to North Lake Auto Plaza Boulevard. And that would happen within the existing right-of-way if that right-of-way is available, and also provides a bus pad along Alexandriana Road and Statesville Road. As mentioned, staff does not recommend approval of the petition. It is in an area, if we go back to our future land use slide or adopted place type slide, that we've identified primarily for manufacturing and logistics. We have had some recent industrial rezonings in that area, both to the parcel just south of this one along Twin Lakes, and then on the other side of Twin Lakes Parkway, as well as some additional expansion on the other side of Old Statesville Road for the Auto Plaza. So this is an area that staff did look at during the comp plan process and during community area planning, and identified it again as an area for manufacturing and logistics, and rather than some residential outcomes. Innovation mixed use is present as a place type there along North Lake Auto Plaza Boulevard, and that is the requested zoning district this evening. But again, the primary outcome is a residential only project, which does give us some concern given the recommended place types and zoning districts along both Alexandriana and Twin Lakes Parkway in this general area. So with that, again, staff is not supportive of the request, and we will turn it over to the petitioner team and take any questions following their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Grant, 10 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Lyles, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, and members of the Zoning Committee. Bridget Grant, Land Use Consultant with Moran Van Allen. I'm pleased to be here tonight representing the Embry team. Joel Albee is also with me and will be happy to answer any questions as they arise. It isn't often that we find ourselves at this impasse. We've had several conversations with staff, and this is one of those rare times that we just couldn't reach consensus or identify a creative solution, but it was not for lack of trying. This is one of those moments where the policy and the vision don't align with what the site can specifically be designed for or the market reality of what's happening. So Dave did a great job of giving you the basics of the site, and we appreciate that staff has acknowledged that if this is adopted, it would support 4 of the 2040 comp plan goals. It would provide a 10-minute neighborhood diversity and inclusion, healthy and safe active communities, and an integrative natural and built environment. As you mentioned, the site is located just south of Alexandriana between Statesville and Twin Lakes. And while it has adjacency to I-77 and I-485, it doesn't have any direct connections. This graphic depicts the site with a half-mile radius and a 1-mile radius. And you can see within a half a mile of our site, you can see that the project site's in the lower corner, and within a half a mile, you have Michael Jordan's 23XL, the new NASCAR headquarters as part of a mixed-use development. J.M. Alexander, Blythe, and North Meck schools, again, all within a half a mile, as well as Brighton Town Centers, Walmart. If you go a little further beyond that half mile to the 1 mile, you can see that there are a number of other employment opportunities in this area. This is just showing it in zoomed a little tighter with the opportunities for employment and the opportunity for a walkable environment. While our site is in the ETJ and the 2040 place type recommendation is for manufacturing and logistics, this pocket of M&L is bound by Statesville to the west, Huntersville to the north, and so it's located on the interstate without that direct access. The red area is what falls within Huntersville's land use plan. And you can see that, again, that mixed use opportunity, there's a soccer clinic. Dave's correct, there was an innovative light industrial move to the south of us. You can see our proximity to the schools and to the Walmart grocery store. This is depicting the mixed-use site that's catty-corner from us that shows you that broad mix of uses, and that Huntersville views this area with the circles as an opportunity for activity centers and a mix of uses. So while we recognize that the place type south of Alexandriana is leaning towards more manufacturing and logistics, the broader view is for a larger mix of uses. I also think it's important to note that over the past 20 years, majority of the parcels along this corridor have been developed with the exception of this one. It sort of speaks to the difficulty of developing other office or industrial flex spaces on this site. So I won't read you this entire slide, but the basic gist is that the leading broker took this out to the market in the fall of 2023. They sent out 100 requests and packets for information, and they received a number of responses. Only a handful of them were for single family, 2. 20 were for multifamily. They received no offers from anybody from industrial or flex or office. So we did follow back up. Why wasn't anyone looking at the site for this particular use? Essentially, it was because there's only, of the 19-plus acre site, only about 12 to 13 acres of it is actually developable. Within that area that's developable, there's about a 50-foot grade change. That can be a little costly for larger buildings that are typically accustomed to be built for industrial uses or even industrial flex. They require more parking. So the cost of construction on the site would result in creating spaces that wouldn't be competitive with rents for similar products in the area. Essentially, that's what led us to a multifamily product. The reason why multifamily works on this site as opposed to non-residential uses is because you can do multiple building site and work with the topography, changing the angles of the building. There's less parking required. We're able to preserve and dedicate that 5 acres of open space on the south side of the site. It also includes a 2.5 acre conservation easement. We think this is appropriate for multifamily because we're in proximity to 3 schools, and it's not very often that you get to say you're within a half mile of that type of campus, plus be near a grocery store and employment, and provide a crosswalk or, a sidewalk off-site to fill in a gap to give you a direct connection. As Dave mentioned, I believe we are also on 2 bus routes. You can see on this bottom graphic, I apologize, it's a little light. The light is showing where we would be providing on-site sidewalk. The green is 1,200 linear feet of sidewalk that we would construct off-site as part of this rezoning, and then the orange shows you the existing sidewalk. All of that leads you to an intersection that is signalized with pedestrian crosswalks and gets you to that mix of uses. We've continued to work on this site plan over the past few months. We have found more information about the site constraints, and so we have dropped the number of units that we're going to be proposing from 350 down to 300. We know we're going to be preserving that 5 acres of open space. We have that community benefit of the 1,200 linear feet of off-site sidewalk. And we're also going to be looking to add 10% of the units at 80% AMI for a period of 10 years. So I'm pleased to say when we take all of these things into consideration, in addition to the 4 goals that staff identified this plan could meet, we've added a 5th, and that's the ability to provide housing for all, goal number 3. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Any questions? Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you. I'm going to have a question for Mr. Patton as well. Ms. Grant, not a question. Thank you for having a discussion with the petitioners, and thank them on my behalf and my colleagues' behalf for identifying the opportunity with diversifying the units that's in there. Mr. Patton, earlier today, Councilmember Graham and I and the mayor attended a conversation with the county regarding ETJ and roads. and the impact of.
too.
Oh, and Councilmember Driggs as well, thank you. Our head of transportation regarding the ETJ and roads and impact. Is this, and this may be a question, Ms. Grant, that you might be able to answer, is this something that we're looking at potentially at petitioning to be brought in through annexation?
That would probably be a better question for the petitioner.
So, Ms. Grant, do you know if, and I'm just trying to get an idea if there may be a conversation with attempting to annex into the city because we have these orphan roads and that's causing some challenges for the residents regarding who maintains it?
We haven't had the discussion yet on annexation, but we can look into that. And I will say, this site isn't proposing new public streets to go through it.
Okay, so if not, if it stays in the ETJ, it will be helpful as you all are working closely with staff to identify exactly who the roads that are a part of this, who is going to be responsible for maintaining them, so that we have a good idea. Again, this is somewhat of a new conversation, but it's not a new conversation regarding orphan roads, but on the front end, now that it's been brought to my attention, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that on our end, we're making sure that we're protecting not only the petitioner for development, but the future residents that will be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. I have a question for staff. Currently, this is not recommended by staff. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And tell me why, tell us why again.
This is an area that we just did not identify as having any kind of supportive outcomes for residential. It's primarily been looked at as manufacturing, logistics, and IMU, which is either supporting job creation, economic development opportunities. IMU is somewhat of a transitional type of district where things are starting to get out of industrial uses, generating more towards mixed use or adaptive reuse projects. So it's just an area that, again, we didn't see as being supportive for residential. The residential recommendations are really on the other side of I-77, closer to the North Lake Activity Center. But this was an area that was identified for manufacturing logistic uses and recognizing the existing zoning and some of the already existing uses that are out there, which, again, did not include any residential outcomes.
So I do have a concern because staff is not recommending it. We talked about that earlier. But this also doesn't have any community opposition, so that we have that. I'm familiar with the area. Is there currently residential over there?
And there may be some on the Huntersville side if you go a little bit further north, but that's not until you get up towards Hambright Road. There might be some proposed projects on the north side of Alexandriana, on the north kind of east side of Old Statesville. But there's none immediately adjacent. There's the soccer fields and then the existing school, and then some commercial a little bit further down on the Huntersville side. Everything on the Charlotte side south is either office or non-residential uses.
So it's office or non-residential. Is there any industrial over there?
There is industrial zoning. Some of those zonings have taken place as recently as this year, but I don't know exactly what the full uses are. Some of them were for supportive uses for the auto mall and the auto dealers next door, but they are zoned for industrial type outcomes. Yep.
So, okay. I would ask Bridget the same thing. How close is the residential to this site?
So in our view, there's residential on the other side of 77. There's also residential catty corner from us to the north at that Michael Jordan mixed-use site where he has his new corporate headquarters. Directly north of that is additional multifamily that's being proposed. And then if you can look on the map graphic, you can start to see there's residential where the colorful graphic is pointed in, and I'm hesitant to use the pointer. There's additional residential in that area. So there is residential in the area, but the closest uses to us are the soccer fields, the 3 schools, and then, as Dave mentioned, some supportive, more, I wouldn't say it's true industrial, heavy industrial, but more light and industrial flex office.
Okay. So for my colleagues, I just want them to recognize the difference. This staff is not supporting this because of the vision for the area. It's my understanding because of the vision for the area. So it's sort of up to us how we're driving this area. There's not any community opposition like there was for the other petition. So it's a different consideration. You said it's near 3 schools, right?
Elementary, middle, and high school.
Now, one thing you said, it's close to employment.
There, you have the North Lake Auto Mall, as well as everything, if you look at going further down Eastfield, Amazon, Carolina Office of Services, there's a number of institutions, plus there's the additional retail coming into the area with Brighton Town Center.
And I know we talked about price point. You mentioned that 10% would be at 80% AMI, but I want you to hear the places you're naming for employment. Amazon, and I'm thinking Walmart, and those different types, the auto mall. So think about who's able to afford and what AMI they're in. So if you're going to use that scenario, then I think we should look at being consistent on that price point. If you're saying employment is a factor, then what type of employee can afford 100% AMI, or even 80% AMI?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Ms. Ajmira?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I struggle with this rezoning petition for all the reasons that David have highlighted. I see to the west, we have a commercial use like warehouse. So when we are talking about multifamily and potential, new residents that will be coming in, and you got dealership nearby and this commercial use, it just concerns me from the quality of life issues. Other questions? So I don't know if I can support this in its current form. I do like that there is a conversation about dedicating a future neighborhood park. How is that coming along?
We were finalizing details on a conservation easement that's within that 5-acre area, so we're working with multiple departments and agencies to make sure we can dedicate it all.
Great, with the county. Okay. I'll have more questions for you. I'll probably have to drive by this side just to envision what you are all looking at from the residential perspective. But I'm with staff on this. Thank you. With if no other questions, I'd like to move to close.
There's more. There are others.
You got Driggs.
Oh,
Who's up next?
Mr. Driggs.
Yes,
has a
Mr.
question.
Driggs is.
Okay, thank you. So I will repeat, as I've often said, my first instinct is to go with the staff. I appreciate your work, and I would be very thoughtful about arriving at a different conclusion. What concerns me about this is kind of a principal question, and that is, if the fact is that nobody wants to buy the land to put something there that aligns with our plans, then what do we do about that? We need to take another look at our plans. And I would just remind you, we had a density bonus for a long time on the city. No one did it, right? So we said you can have all this extra density if you build affordable. No one did it. So at some point, we do have to achieve some sort of convergence between the goals and the vision that we have, and then the reality of where the money comes from and where the investors are and where the demand is in the market. And the market does reflect the desires of participants, like people want rental properties, and so the builders build those rental properties. It's not some decision that a developer makes in a vacuum. They look around, and what they see is a greater opportunity to rent housing than they do to create the type of facility that we think belongs there. So I think we need to work on that. Mr. Patton, I'll get with you and look forward to your conclusions, District Rep. But I do think there is a fundamental thing, an issue there. On the ETJ, I just want to remind everybody, we did execute an agreement in the context of our update of the MOU for the MTC, that the interlocal agreement, to the effect that we will work with them to address the question of orphan roads. And orphan roads is a funny subject. The one that's most famous on Palisades Parkway came about because that particular location was supposed to be annexed, and then the state passed a law eliminating involuntary annexation, and it got stranded. So it's literally an orphan. Otherwise, those roads are the responsibility of NCDOT. I've talked to the district engineer about that and how we can also participate in efforts with NCDOT and the county to identify those situations and make sure that the development process takes into account what the road situation is. Just wanted to say that about the ETJ. I was on the call today. It's apparent to me that we're going to have some conversations we will need to about how our UDO operates in the ETJ. So this is just a case. But on this one, I have a concern that we turn this down, and then what happens? You know, I think there was an intensive marketing effort, from what I understand, and people just didn't want to buy it for the use that we have in mind for it. So anyway, let's keep working on this one, and Ms. Johnson, I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Move to
Thank-
close.
Have a motion to close?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to close public hearing. All in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? That is unanimous.
We're now going to go to item 25, which is rezoning petition 2024-41 by McElway Road Ventures for approximately a half an acre located on the east side of McElway Road, west of Craig Avenue. It's in District 5, and the current zoning is Neighborhood 2B and an Office Flex campus. Proposed zoning is Neighborhood 2B. The staff recommends approval of this petition. I don't believe we have any opposition to it, and Mr. Carmichael would represent petitioner. So let's hear from the staff.
Thank you. Again, this is item 2024-041. The site is an approximately half-acre triangular parcel located on the east side of McElway Road, due east of Craig Avenue. Surrounding development includes a mix of garden apartments, townhomes, as well as single-family. There's also a townhome project under construction immediately to the south. Property surrounding the site to the east, west, and south is zoned N2B, and there is N1B zoning as you move southeast on Craig Avenue as the area transitions to a more single-family conventional development pattern. The Home Depot is zoned Commercial Center, and there is also a mix of OFC, CG, and ML2 zoning present in the area. The place type for the subject site is Neighborhood 1, but the McElway Road corridor includes a mix of Neighborhood 2, Commercial, and Neighborhood Center place types. Staff recommends approval of the petition, as it will allow for the site to be developed with a mix of residential uses that are consistent and compatible with the existing mix of multi-dwelling development, single-family, and commercial uses in the area. There's residential support uses in the vicinity, and the site is within a quarter mile of a neighborhood center. The site is in an identified access to housing gap and could facilitate goal 2 of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which is neighborhood diversity and inclusion. Approval of this rezoning will change the place type to Neighborhood 2, consistent with the place type immediately to the west of the site. I'm here if you have any questions.
All right. Why don't we hear from the petitioner's representative, Mr. Carmichael?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, and the zoning committee. I'm John Carmichael here on behalf of the petitioner. With me tonight are Dale Olson and Darren Sutton of the petitioner. The site contains just over half acre. It's located southeast corner of the intersection of McElway Road and Craig Avenue. This is an aerial of the site. This is McElway here, Craig Avenue's here. Monroe Road's just to the north of the site off the page. North Wendover's to the west of the site. Oakhurst Park is to the east of the site. And this is Home Depot here, this large white roof. And then this is a zoomed in aerial of the site. Our site here is outlined in green. This is the zoning map. The site is zoned office, the blue is office, and then the remainder of the site is zoned N2B. You've got N2B zoning to the west, south, and east of the site. There is a little N1B zoning to the east of the site here. Then you've got commercial general and office zoning to the north of the site. The request is to rezone the site to N2B to allow uses allowed in that district on the site, including townhome dwelling units, The petitioner did develop by right on adjacent parcels of land. This is the rezoning site, a townhome community. We're happy to answer any questions. We appreciate the planning staff's recommendation of support, and once again, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Are there any questions, Ms. Molina?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just really quickly, Mr. Carmichael, you had a community meeting. Was it any real participation, any interest, questions?
We had one person attend, it was a virtual community meeting, one person attend the community meeting. We then heard from a neighbor here outside of the community meeting who had some concerns about stormwater and privacy fencing on the existing community here. And so we met with Ms. Creech and others on, June the 5th. And as a result of those meetings, the petitioner is going to extend the privacy fence along the common property line of the existing development. And then they also had a stormwater concern, and they're going to look at that, and they're going to make hopefully some improvements to that. And we'll stay in touch with Ms. Creech and others. And the other thing they asked, and we have reached out to CDOT, was whether this intersection of McElway and Craig, if that could be a three-way stop. Right now, it's a stop here and then a through movement here. And I emailed Ms. King of CDOT to ask that question, and she's looking into that.
And is that something that the developer would cover, or would that be, do you know?
Well, we could certainly talk about that. I don't know what CDOT's, and I don't expect them to have an answer on that tonight, but we will follow up on that.
Okay, I'll be happy to plug in and help with that.
Yeah, I drive down this road all the time, and that would certainly be a traffic calming measure, although it is a major collector, and I don't know what CDOT's position on major collectors is with respect to a three-way stop, but.
Thank you so much. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
All right, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. This question is for staff. I realize that this is conventional zoning, so we don't have a lot of information. But if you look at the school impact on the last page, it says Alexander Graham, well, no, I'll say Myers Park High, from 119% of capacity to unknown. Alexander Graham Middle, from 100% to unknown. So I realize with these developments or these petitions, we don't have a lot of information, but this is one of the things I talk about with cumulative impact. If we're getting these petitions and we don't know what impact this is having on schools, the existing residents, the current residents feel this. So I think in our policy, I don't know what we can do, but I don't think that unknown for school capacity is sufficient information. There should be something that we should ask for, some type of basic information.
Ms. Johnson, I think two of my kids went there. It's been unknown, and they're in their 20s. It's been unknown for a long, long time at Myers Park and Alexander Graham. It's really it's just one of those things.
Well, at some point, we as council have the ability to do things differently. And it's not just Myers Park and Alexander Graham. It's others. It's all schools in the city.
Okay,
So
well,
that's
I
my
thought you were
question.
talking
Thank you.
specifically about them. Okay. Any other questions?
Move to close.
All right, we have a motion to close. Second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Our next item is item 26, petition 2324 by the Paces Foundation for approximately 10 acres located on the east side of Dilling Farm Road, south of Moore's Chapel. It's in District 3, Councilmember Brown, and it's mixed-use residential is the current zoning, and neighborhood 2B conditional is the proposed zoning. Staff recommends approval of the petition, and I believe, do we have a representative? Nolan Gross? Nolan Gross? Gross?
ma'am.
Oh, there, sorry.
You got it right, Nolan Gross,
I
thank
was looking
you.
that way,
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
So we'll go ahead and have the staff presentation, and I believe at that point you'll have 3 minutes, because they're going to be short and brief.
Thank you. Petition 2023-124 is just over 10.5 acres located on the east side of Dilling Farm Road, south of Moore's Chapel Road. Property is currently zoned MX2. Proposed zoning is N2B CD. The 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1 place type. Proposal is for up to 120 age-restricted multifamily stacked residential units along with accessory uses allowed in the N2B zoning district. Would provide a 10-foot Class C buffer with fence along the western property line where adjacent to N1 zoning and place type. Commits to transportation improvements, including dedication of 33.5 feet of right-of-way as measured from the Dilling Farm Road center line. Access would be from Dilling Farm Road by a private street. Provide an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along Dilling Farm Road from the site's access point to the Morris Chapel Road sidewalk. Limits building height to 48 feet and limits detached lighting to 21 feet. Staff recommends approval of the petition. It is inconsistent with the neighborhood 1 place type recommendation. However, the site is currently entitled for multifamily dwellings via 2005 rezoning. Petition would provide an additional housing option for seniors, a growing segment of our community's population. And the site is within a 1/3 mile walk of neighborhood services, including a grocery store, pharmacy, dentist, and doctor's offices, and restaurants. The petition could facilitate the comprehensive plan goals of 10-minute neighborhoods, neighborhood diversity and inclusion, and housing access for all. And I will take any questions following the petitioner's presentation.
All right, would you like to speak to this petition? Thank you very much. Mr. Gross?
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council and the Zoning Committee. Nolan Gross with Urban Design Partners, representing the PACES Foundation on rezoning petition 2023-124. PACES Foundation is an affordable housing developer locally and across the southeast. On your screen, you can see the site as it exists today off of Dilling Farm Road. Here's an aerial of our site located east of Dilling Farm Road and I-485 to the south of Morris Chapel Road and west of Kendall Drive. An additional aerial, you can see the site is predominantly wooded. There is a creek along the eastern property edge. As Joe mentioned, the site is zoned MX2 from a previous entitlement for 179 apartments. We're requesting to rezone to neighborhood 2A conditional for the development of 120 affordable age-restricted units. Here's that previous entitlement, 2005. Again, 179 apartments along the western edge of this rezoning site plan. 2040 policy map identifies the site as neighborhood 1. However, it does abut commercial and is nearby to a neighborhood center. So here's our initial site concept. We held a community meeting on November 30th, displayed this site plan, and received feedback from neighbors. While it was a small meeting, only 3 community members in attendance, they provided ample feedback and concerns related to building design, walkability, roadway improvements. So we went back to the drawing board and modified the site plan. Here you can see what is proposed before you this evening. There are some slight differences. The first being the building design. Neighbors preferred an L-shaped building as opposed to 2 structures. So we have gone back, met with our architects, modified the building design, and reduced overall unit count from 140 to 120. With that, we've also reduced the parking area, decreasing the amount of impervious coverage. We've received a street exception from subdivision staff. By code, we would be required to connect to Samlin Lane. However, due to severe topographical constraints, that has been waived, which is why the roadway is now proposed as a private street rather than public. And we've also relocated the sidewalk, which previously navigated interior to the site to Morris Chapel Road, which will now be located along the private street, then following Dilling Farm Road up to Morris Chapel. We've been in coordination with NCDOT, and they are agreeable for us to locate this within the right-of-way. Here's another building the PACES Foundation is working on, the Legacy at Carr Heights. This gives you some sample elevations of what this project is proposed to look like. They'll utilize the same architect, the same general contractor. So it gives you an idea of a building that's currently under construction and hoping to be finished soon.
Thank you very much.
Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Gross? Ms. Brown, Ms. Mayfield, Ms. Brown? Go ahead.
Yes. So, thank you so much for your, Nolan, for your presentation. I was wondering about the community meeting, because, I'm very engaged, but it happened before my time, slightly before my time. I mean, I had been elected, but wasn't in my role yet. I did get some feedback from community members, like 10 of them, and they said you guys were doing your due diligence, you were working together. I really appreciate that. They're not 100% there yet. I just wanted to share the concerns that they sent to me in the email and speaking with them. I don't think that they are completely in support of it right now, so I would have to get my heels and my boots out on the ground and go out in the community and see what the concerns are. Like to look at the site. I love the affordability piece. That is certainly something that we need more of. I wanted to ask you about age restriction, though. Is it going to be senior living?
Yes, ma'am. So age restricted, I don't have it on the screen, but as defined in this petition, is a community intended and occupied such that 100% of units have one occupant 55 years of age or older. However, in talking with Paces Foundation and Soho Housing Partners, the average age of residents is typically closer to 80 years.
For this particular project?
In projects like this that they typically develop, yes, ma'am. But it is restricted 55 plus.
Okay, it's restricted 55 plus one member.
Yes, ma'am, in every single unit.
Okay. And so, but you said the average is 80?
It is older, and
That's
that's
older.
just a common trend that this developer sees in their existing projects.
All right, and how many units? 120?
120, we reduced that from 140 in the original
Okay.
proposal.
All right. Give me just a few moments.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'm still looking. They were concerned about the congestion in the Morris Chapel Road area. It's another, you've already spoke with them.
Yes, ma'am. I'm aware of that concern. We were actually asked to coordinate with NCDOT about a possible improvement to Morris Chapel Road. I've had email correspondence with that reviewer forwarding the neighbor's request. The reviewer informed me that that would not be allowed. NCDOT would not support the requested improvement, and I have passed that along to the neighbor. And I received a similar email to you, Councilwoman, addressing a few concerns. We're not 100% there yet, and we're in the process of scheduling an additional meeting, and we'd be happy to have you there.
Yeah, with the two deaths in my family, I got like 200 emails, so I haven't been able to check everything, but I did get, these were at the top, so I tried to see what was going on, because I know we were gonna be on for zoning, and I wanted to make sure that I expressed the concerns of the constituents, but I'd be more than happy to work with you, work with them to see what we can work out on common ground, and, just move forward with that. But thank you always for reaching out to me, seeing what the concerns are, and being transparent with the entire process. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no further questions at this time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brown.
No, Mayfield does.
Ms. Mayfield.
Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Gross, along with Councilmember Brown, I think we all received outreach that you also received. Now that you've noted that the residents are 55 and older, but Paces has seen residents up to 80, residents are a lot more active today. I don't see any amenities when I look on this plan or on there. I see the private street, of which I would like to know how that's going to be maintained and what's going to be in the actual language for maintaining that, so that that does not become a orphan road at some point. But what are the actual amenities that's on the site? Because I don't see anything outside of the building and parking.
That's a great question, Councilwoman. And working with Soho Housing Partners and the Paces Foundation, we floated ideas of community gardens, different active amenity areas, but you are correct, none currently are shown on the screen. We're happy to go back with the development team and commit to those moving forward, though.
I think that will be helpful, because it was definitely noted that residents wanted to know what the community benefits are. And again, a lot of our elders are a lot more active today. I was speaking to someone earlier where their mother, who's in her 80s, is still a tutor and still very active and travels and a lot of other things. So it will be helpful to see whether there's walking space, park space, some type of actual amenity that is on this site for the residents, as well
Certainly.
as getting an update as far as how the conversations are going with the residents in the area, because it was mentioned, even though it was a small number, most of the residents that live in that area are working adults, and they're at work in second shift and third shift. So they did have representation to reach out to all of council to just share that they would like to continue conversation.
Happy to do it. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Is there any other comment or question? Ms. Molina?
Madam Mayor, look, this isn't even, I don't think I've, even in reviewing that, ever thought about this, but I think as we think, and this is just a total off statement, but aging means something totally different now. It really do. Like 50, 60, people doing way different things than they once did. I mean, really active, very involved, still probably really getting good into the second swing. So that is something great to think about. Yeah.
So thanks for the consideration. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second. And all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, thank you very much. Then, thank you, Ms. Dress. All right, our next petition is 2023-152 by Sam's Commercial Properties LLC, approximately 1 acres located on the southwest intersection of Mallard Creek and Carolina Lily, east of Kings Grant. It's in close to the ETJ, it's in Powell's, and closest to Ms. Johnson in District 4. The current zoning is commercial center. The proposed zoning is general commercial. Staff recommends approval. So let's see, we have a presentation, and then we will hear from Mr. Fox has been sending you down here. You should tell him we want to see him sometimes.
You're stuck with me for tonight, I'm sorry.
I was here earlier.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks for coming. And so we'll go ahead and have the staff presentation, and then 3 minutes for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This site is just over an acre, located along the northwest side of Mallard Creek Road, near the Cabarrus County line. The site is currently vacant, but it's in an area with various residential and commercial developments. It's currently zoned Commercial Center, CC, that's a legacy district, and that is as a result of a 1998 petition that was over a larger area that allows for retail and general business uses on this parcel, though they were never developed out for this specific parcel. The request is for general commercial, which is consistent with the policy map's recommendation for commercial at this site. It's a conventional request, so there is no associated site plan. The proposed zoning district would allow for similar uses to what is already entitled through the CC plan that's on the site, but more importantly, the site will be developed in conformance with the UDO, which creates preferred outcome to development rather than the CC district. The application of commercial uses is appropriate at this site, given that it's located along a major arterial road, and this development may provide goods and services to the nearby residential areas. We recommend approval of this petition, and I'll take any questions following the petitioner's presentation.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's see, Mr. Remington.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, planning staff, members of the Zoning Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to present before you tonight. As was mentioned, my name is Remington Jackson, attorney at law firm Parker Poe. We represent the petitioner on this application. We want to thank the staff first for working with us on this rezoning to determine the best rezoning district for this planned project. Thank you for your support of the petition overall. I originally did this presentation not knowing if there would be opposition, so it's a lot longer, but I'll just shorten it down to the main parts. As you can see, the address 13721 Mallard Creek Road. It's 1.1 acre. It's in the Charlotte ETJ. As you can see, the aerial of the site, it's at the corner of Mallard Creek Road and Carolina Lily. The star represents where the project would potentially be. The existing has already been mentioned, is currently CC. We're asking for CG, general commercial. The potentials that are being looked at right now are potentially a restaurant, but there are many other uses that potentially could be at the site. We did have one community meeting where we had no attendees come, but we've also received no opposition to the rezoning petition. These are some of the recent and pending rezonings. Again, the rest of this would not be necessary since, again, thank you staff for supporting this petition. Wanted to say thank you again, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are there any proposed traffic improvements? Because this area, there is a lot of pending rezoning and a lot of approved petitions. So are there any traffic improvements proposed?
Not currently. We haven't proposed any additional traffic improvements. Previously, the petitioner had dedicated a street right near this one. If you look, I can go back. The top left-hand corner where that car is located, that street was dedicated by the petitioner for public street or fire lane. Outside of that, the petitioner hasn't moved forward with any other traffic improvements.
I'll just add that it is a conventional petition, so we don't have a site plan that would dictate whether or not transportation improvements are needed, but once it goes into the permitting process, depending on the trip generation or the uses considered, they may have a comprehensive transportation review required at that time.
Okay. So one of the things that I've asked for routinely is a map of all the pending, of the approved and pending rezonings. That helps visualize, the cumulative impact. I would like that for this petition so I can share with my colleagues. There's a lot of rezonings that are approved in this area of Mallard Creek. It's kind of narrow. So I'd like to be able to show my colleagues that information.
Yeah, we do have the rezoning history map that's included in the staff analysis, but if you need a larger area shown than what is in the rezoning history map, which does include pending and approved petitions, we can work on creating a more zoomed out version.
Right. The staff is familiar because I've been asking for it for a while. Yeah. So because King's Grant is not too far from this. So I would like to see a map so I can consider this. Thank you. Move to close.
Second.
Motion to close and second. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is item 28.
Deferral.
29. We're deferring 28, and we go to 29, petition 2024-011 by Eastwood Homes for approximately 17 acres located along the south side of Johnson-Ola Road, East Prosperity. It's in District 4. Current zoning is Neighborhood 1A, and the proposed zoning is Neighborhood 2A conditional. Staff recommends approval upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation. All right. Ms. Montalvo, you got it.
Thank you. Again, this is item number 2024-011, Eastwood Homes. The subject site is a 17.4-acre parcel on the south side of Johnston-Ola Road, approximately 800 feet east of Prosperity Ridge Road. The surrounding development pattern includes school uses to the east, a mixed-use community to the north that was approved in 2019 for senior housing, multifamily, and a child care center, and a mixed-use development to the west of the site that was approved in 2020 for 432 units, supportive commercial, and a small park area. The site is currently zoned N1A. While there is N1A zoning to the immediate east, the property is developed with a school use as opposed to residential development. Property to the west is zoned UR2 conditional, and UR3 conditional zoning is found to the north. As you move westwardly along Johnson-Ola Road, the zoning transitions to include CC and NS zones. The site is in the Neighborhood 1 place type, but is sandwiched between the campus place type to the east and the Community Activity Center place type to the west. The proposal is for a residential project consisting of 115 multifamily attached units that includes connecting to the street system approved for the project to the immediate west via the extension of Ragsdale Drive and Tournament Drive. Architectural standards are proposed, including maximum building lengths of 150 feet, a maximum building height of 48 feet, and usable porches. Infrastructure improvements will be provided along Johnston-Oler Road, and internal public streets will include an 8-foot sidewalk. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation, as the proposed development is consistent and compatible with the emerging development pattern along Johnston-Oler Road. Connectivity will be provided to the adjacent residential development, and the site is within a quarter-mile watershed of a community activity center, which provides residential support uses. The petition is inconsistent with the recommended place type, and approval of this rezoning would change the place type to Neighborhood 2, which would provide a more appropriate transition between the community activity center and campus place types. Additionally, the petition could facilitate Goal 1 and Goal 2 of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. So, Mr. Pridemore?
Yes.
Okay, so you will have 10 minutes, along with Mark Kaltman, Robin Faison, and Antoinette Mingo. There is opposition, and Juan Uven will have time as well. Is Juan Uven present? Okay, great. You go right ahead, Mr. Pridemore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor Lyles, council members and zoning committee. I'm here on behalf of, I should start, Brandon Pridemore, Arjo Harrison Associates. We're the civil engineering consultant for the project. We're here on behalf of Eastwood Homes, who is the applicant. Eastwood Homes, as you know, has been doing business in the Charlotte region and still family-owned business 47 years after they started here, so they're very excited to be able to hopefully introduce another community in the greater Charlotte region, and more specifically here in Charlotte. And then Robin Faison is a family of the property owner, so she is here as well. So we have both the applicant and the property owner represented. But I wanted to just kind of point out, if you look at the map that's on the screen before you, the site is currently zoned N1A, as staff has noted. We are seeking N2A. If you look at what's happened development pattern-wise all around, to the east we have Smith Farm, which has been developed currently as both attached multifamily and traditional multifamily. If you look to the north of Johnston-Oler Road, there is multifamily and attached units being developed there. And as staff had noted as well, directly to our east, we have campus. We have both Corvian schools there, and then just a little bit further down, we have Mallard Creek High School. So we feel that the development pattern that's being proposed is very consistent with what's happening in that area. And in a lot of ways, this is the last, when I say substantial parcels that are probably greater than 5 acres that are remaining for this area. We do have a single-family development down to the south of us, which is Hayden Commons, but we are disconnected from them. There is a Duke Power right-of-way, a stream, we'll have stream buffers, so we feel like we're buffering and protecting those folks down there. But more importantly, too, this is a great location as we're sited, if we look at this, we're sited right here in the middle of Johnston-Oler and Prosperity Ridge Road. We've got Benfield over here as we look at it. But we're situated almost dead smack in the middle of 3 park opportunities that exist. We talk about, I heard Mr. Driggs mention earlier about amenities. We will cover that internally as well. Actually, it was Ms. Mayfield, I believe it was. But if we look at it, we've got Mallard Creek Park over here, less than 1 mile as you drive all the way over here, but much shorter than that if you cut through Mallard Creek High School. We've got Stanley Farm Park, which, it's my understanding, has just been recently dedicated to the city. It is undeveloped, unplanned at this point, but that is following Tournament Drive, walking the sidewalks, that'll be interconnected. That is 1/4 of a mile away. And then to the north, if you were to take the sidewalks that are available along Prosperity Ridge Road and cut on over, Ridge Park is actually right there to the top of my sign, but again, less than 1 mile drive, very walkable in a lot of sense of today's active communities. If we look at land uses, I kind of covered those, but we do have the Community Activity Center that's being heavily developed over here immediately to our west. Again, the campus development that exists currently and some current work going on as well directly to our east. And then we have multifamily adjacent to us to the north as well. So again, very consistent, I think, overall in the grand scheme of things. If we look at the site plan, this is one of the questions that did come up. I want to step back for just a moment and note for the council, we did have two different meetings. On February 24th, I believe it was, we had our virtual meeting, which is our neighborhood meeting that was required. And then on June 5th, we had a follow-up meeting with notification by Ms. Johnson, who was kind enough to attend both meetings, with a developing coalition that is very active in her district. So we're going to base some of the responses based on the feedback we got. The first meeting didn't have a whole lot, very good. Just one neighbor did show up for that meeting. But when we met with the community coalition, there was probably the better part of 12-plus people there at that meeting. So we do want to address those items. One of the things that did come up was amenities. Normally during the rezoning, we don't normally address that. You know, we always intend to provide amenities when we do the civil design. There's a lot of things that have to go into it based on engineering, getting everything to fit, and then we figure out where do we fit it. But looking ahead based on the question that we got from the I'll call it the Community Coalition, just to shorten it, rather than give an acronym. We're identifying this area as our amenity area. Specifically, they asked for a playground. We are going to offer a playground and seating area. And then, should space be limited, we're looking at this as an alternate location as well. So we are going to provide that at a baseline minimum. As we look at the site, we're looking at two different type of products. We're looking at a 20-foot alley load product up here. The areas that you see in yellow, there's 27 of those. And then when you look at the lighter blue, there are 87 22-foot wide front entry townhomes that are being provided. The gross density of this, our revised density is actually 114 after addressing all comments. I know staff noted 115. That'll be a density of about 6.5 units per acre as we look at the gross. And then when we look at open space, we're required to have roughly about 0.4 acres to satisfy it. We have 2.7 acres in open space, not including the tree save, which is about an equal area, so we far exceed the open space requirement that is required by ordinance. And then one of the big topics that went on for quite a discussion, and I think in some of the correspondence that you as council members saw from the Community Coalition, and my response back this morning was parking. I wanted to address that in several parts to it. One is that we did offer that we are going to have on-street parking available. Didn't really have it highlighted when we had the Community Coalition meeting. We do have it shown, but didn't really have it highlighted. But what I did is go back and look and identify specifically how many spaces we'd have. We'd have 13 up here on the northern portion of the site, and then we'd have 2 opportunities here with 10 spaces here. So we're providing what we feel are 23 overflow parking spaces, which would be for visitors, extended family that may come and visit, you know, those type of things. More importantly, as we look at the rear load townhomes, this is going to be a 2-car garage, 2-car driveway space. So there's 4 spaces allotted per unit here. This is going to be more of a consideration that we're going to ask for at the Community Coalition meeting. We kind of noted that we'll have a 1-car driveway and a 2-car driving space. We'd actually like to leave that open to be the 1-car driveway, the 1-car garage as the baseline. And what we wanted to do was just based on presentation, let that be a buyer option if they want to have a second space. A couple reasons for that. One is we're trying to avoid having a sea of concrete as we thought about it, because parking spaces take up the front yard, especially with a townhome. And then as well, not all buyers are going to need that many spaces. So we are going to offer it as an option, but would ask that council and the zoning committee not make it as a requirement, even though we did kind of indicate that in all honesty. But if we look at the counts and the 20-foot alley load townhomes off, you know, just on lot, no on-street parking, we're having 108 spaces provided. If you look at the 22 front load townhomes, with the 1 garage, 1 driveway space, there's 174 for a total of 282 total parking spaces. The city code only requires 1.5 spaces per unit, 171. We're 65% over without even talking about the 23 on-street spaces we're going to provide. So that is just something we wanted to kind of throw out there for consideration as we move forward with this, hopefully. And
You
then
have 2 minutes left.
Okay. The last thing I just kind of wanted to cover was related to the parking was they did want to ask for a designated visitor parking. I did have a conversation with CDOT this morning with Travis Miller, and he did note that CDOT would not approve visitor parking designated spaces within their right-of-way, which would be, go back one. which would be these areas here. So unless there's some other mechanism, we're not disagreeing to have that ability, but if it's going to be a condition, it'd be subject to CDOT approval. But as of today, CDOT said they don't have a mechanism to approve designated visitor parking spaces within their right-of-way. And then lastly, I just wanted to cover, one of the concerns that came up was rental caps. They did ask for a cap on rentals and that no individual owner or entity could own more than 3 dwellings within the community, and Eastwood Homes is agreeable to that. Talking to staff, they prefer not to have it on the rezoning because it's impossible to enforce, but we're telling you that we're promising you that we will have it in our CC&Rs. And I'm here to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Mr. Uven? Mr. Juan Uven, if you'd like to come down, you will have 10 minutes as well.
So good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Juan Uven. I am the Vice Chair of the Charlotte District 4 Coalition. As the gentleman mentioned, we met on the 5th, and here are our ask for this project to go forward, to put a 25% cap on the amount of rental second half, to cap the amount of individuals, to the entities of units that can be hold to one owner. We want to avoid corporate buyers buying the whole lot. We also want proper signage throughout the community. So if the lots were meant to, if the parking spaces are meant to be for visitor, to clearly say that they're meant for visitors, and to put up the appropriate signage at front rather than at the end, because if you don't do it at the beginning, it just creates a precedent and it just leaves heartburn for the HOA when the HOA takes over. We're asking for language that allows the HOA board or the CC&R to enforce parking regulations and parking rules. And the last one is for the developer, given the size of the development, for the developer to put in either a playground or some type of community space. And per our meeting on the 5th, the developer was agreeable to most of what we asked for. So with those caveats in place, we would agree with that process. But we wanted, you're not gonna have to help me with the language either in the CC&R or in the zoning or whatever, but we want it in writing. And I'm willing to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Uven. And Mr. Pridemore has 2 minutes for a rebuttal.
Sure.
And then we'll have questions.
We have one more speaker in opposition.
He's in opposition.
Yeah, we have one more. We have Ms. Mingo in opposition.
No, Ms. Mingo is in the affirmative.
Oh, she's affirmative.
Is that right,
Yes, ma'am.
clerk?
That's the
Yes.
information I have.
Yes. And Ms. Mingo is here,
And Mr.
but she's in the affirmative, Ms. Esmira. So we have the 2-minute rebuttal, and then we'll open up for questions. So, Mr. Pridemore, would you like to utilize the 2 minutes? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Uven.
Just for the rebuttal, it'll be very short, but we've addressed all those things I think that he's mentioned, other than the visitor parking, which, again, we're not opposed to it, but it'll be subject to CDOT approval if they're willing to approve it, because our visitor parking would be on street. And then as far as parking enforcement, I would refer to my email that I sent to Ms. Mingo and to you, council, this morning. I think that leads to a very slippery slope. That's a lot of enforcement, a lot of time, labor, money to enforce parking. And then as well, too, I don't think the General Assembly is narrowing in on that, but those still haven't been, completely passed. So we're just kind of, leery of making the HOA a parking enforcement agency. That's all. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Esmira?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it's great to hear that there is a coalition that it's been working on this to address communities' concerns. So there was a slide, Mr. Pridemore, where it had alley load townhomes. Can you pull that slide up?
Yes, ma'am.
So where we have,
Can you guys
So this question is for staff.
So,
And the one where you had
right here.
side by side, that wasn't a site plan, it was just alley load townhomes versus yeah, there you go, front load. So when we look at, so with alley, will they be required to have tree planting and sidewalk?
We would typically have to condition, under our current regulations, if there's going to be tree planting, we should include, in the alley, we should include that as a condition.
So that would be part of it?
Correct.
Okay, I know we did a text amendment not too long ago. So this will fall under the amendment, or it wouldn't apply here? Is that,
I don't
wouldn't
believe
apply
it would
here?
apply.
Who's-
Mr. Patton is coming to
Mr.
the
Patton is
podium.
coming.
Right, so the question was if there are planning requirements on the alley. So in the base standards of the ordinance, there are not planning requirements just for base developments in our alleys. If they were going to incorporate those, as Ms. Montalvo stated, they would have to be incorporated into the conditional notes. This seems to be primarily fronting on public streets, which would have sidewalks and planting strips, so it looks like they're covered here, but if they did have some alleys, they would be either subject to the standards of the UDO, or they could propose standards that go beyond that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there might be alleys that may be subject to, they may not have tree planting requirements?
Yeah, if there's alleys in this project, which I can't see fully just because it's kind of a light graphic, there we go.
Yeah, this
So
one
this
might
looks like we've got just that alley in between. That would not have any street trees or plantings. That would just serve primarily as a service for entering and exiting some of those garages or units that are rear-loaded. The streets, public streets would all, of course, have planting strips and sidewalks, but the alleys in this project would not.
And alleys, would they have sidewalks? So maybe this question is for Mr. Pridemore. Can you address my question? Are you going to be planting street trees, and are you going to have sidewalks in alleys?
So, street trees, yes, but they'll be along the public frontages, because all these units front a public road, so we will have street trees here, here, and then the N2A does require 8-foot sidewalks on both sides of all roads, so you'll have it here because this is a 2+ avenue, and we'll have 8-foot sidewalks all throughout the community. But the alleys themselves would not, because that would be very restrictive on you being able to provide additional parking, which is kind of one of our goals, is to have a garage, 2-car driveway space per unit.
So where you got this top, yeah, so that will not have sidewalks or tree planting?
No, ma'am, that isn't typical, just because that's where vehicles are going to be backing out, coming and going, and that is really the rear yard of the home.
Oh, but the one at the top, is that not front-facing?
No, that will
Oh, that will
face
face on the
Johnson
other
Naylor Road.
side?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, got it. So none of them are facing in alleyways?
No, the idea was that if you ride down through here, the streetscape, they did all the same thing, like over
Got
here
it.
with Smith Farm and this over here. You have a nice front presentation. We see porches and doors, no garages, and we wanted to hold the same principle.
Yeah, so no, from looking at this site map plan, those homes where you got alleys in the middle, they're not facing each other?
No, ma'am, they're
Okay.
facing opposite each other.
Okay, that was my concern. All right. And let me just make sure I got. And this next question is for our attorney, Ms. Hagler-Gray. Can limiting corporate ownership, can it be part of the land use discussion? Because I know one of the speaker had mentioned that, and I was under the impression we couldn't have that discussion, or we couldn't make a decision on that.
I think you said corporate ownership. What I will say is that your land use decision can't consider ownership. So with respect to rental versus privately owned, so.
Or selling it to the same owner, multiple units.
Well, not necessarily that, but zoning is it's prohibited from considering ownership in general. So I heard the ask about rental versus ownership, and that is probably not something you can consider in your rezoning decision.
Yeah, just wanted to confirm that.
Now, if I may address that, again, I don't think it's appropriate for staff in the rezoning plan to have it going to what your attorney has said and based on my understanding, but we'd be willing to write a letter separately in agreement with the community coalition, just so they have a little bit of teeth and be able to hold us, to the fire on that.
Well, we appreciate your leadership in addressing communities' concerns, and certainly, I'm sure Ms. Mingo will hold you to that.
She will.
Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yes.
Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you. Mr. Partmore, still thinking about the alleyways. Who's going to be responsible for maintaining the alleyways, grass, debris, all of that?
The alleyways will be maintained by the HOA.
So the residents. So the residents will be responsible. Or you're saying that will be one of the written responsibilities of the actual HOA?
That's correct.
Okay, and these are for sale product, not for rent?
That's correct.
And I also, when I'm looking at my version, which might not be the latest, when we go all the way down on this sheet in the cul-de-sac at the end, we have noted there that that's the potential recycling solid waste station being down in this corner in at the end of the cul-de-sac, in the roundabout of the cul-de-sac?
Yes, ma'am. So currently, with the way it is set up, staff does ask that we consider where would we put those, but
Right.
the plan right now is to have rollout service, which we have verified can be done, but we're still required to show on the rezoning plan potential locations should that not work out.
But what your plan is for this development is to have actual rollout?
Yes, ma'am.
And the way that this is designed, the streets, we do have enough of a setback for the streets to be wide enough for the sanitation trucks, recycling, or garbage to pick up and
Yes,
get
ma'am.
around. But for right now, that's what we're looking at, because when I look at the potential playground, of course, you wouldn't want it over by the dumpster.
That's correct. So, again, we had to identify possible locations and then we'll finalize it. Like I said, there's a lot of, this is the first major step in a number of things that we have to go through.
That is very helpful. The question that was asked regarding parking signs, I can see the opportunity on the front end of at least having them noted, because I know I have received correspondence from residents where they're in a new build and they've had challenges with parking, because unfortunately, the reality is there are more people with more than 2 cars than there are people that don't. And having just one garage or one parking space, that's also saying, I'm never going to have a gathering at my home for whatever reason. So when people come over, having the designated spaces, but unfortunately, those cul-de-sacs sometimes end up being the weekend or the third vehicle parking spot. So at least if you're able to, on the front end, having the signage up, just like you go through some neighborhoods, you have the signs, no parking on this side of the street. That helps to set a precedent. That is not something we can mandate. I'm just asking for that to be a consideration if possible.
And I think we can look at the CC&Rs to influence that, hey, residents should not park in the on-street parking spaces, to reserve those. But again, that becomes an enforcement issue, and I can't sit here and tell you that it's going to work absolutely perfect.
You're absolutely right. What I can share from what I've seen so far, having the signage makes a difference. It's a lot easier to have enforcement when there's signage versus there not being. That's just something that if the consideration could be made on the front end, I think it will be helpful in regards to the communication with community and looking at what is currently happening in residential. But I do appreciate the fact that you're bringing a for sale product to the market. I hope there's some diversity in that. Can't mandate what the prices are going to be, but just hope that there's consideration of workforce housing in there.
Thank you. The one thing I do just want to clarify when it comes to the visitor parking is, again, we'll
Visitor.
work with CDOT,
Okay.
for the spacing, but again, if the policy, city policy currently sounds like it won't allow it, but if that will prove it, we'll definitely do it.
So let me ask a question of staff. Help me understand where there might be a challenge on the map with the visitor parking, because the reality is, we say we want 10-minute space, we want to gather, but if someone has a birthday, a graduation, or just because, there's a good chance that other people are going to be at the house. And there's not like there's rail for them to easily access it. So help me understand staff's concern with the additional parking? Or are we trying to support and encourage developments that say, no, you should never have anyone come visit you?
Let's see if CDOT can come up and convey what their general requirements are.
You got the short straw?
Good evening, Jay Carpenter with CDOT. The public streets do include the on-street parking, but the differentiator is we do not mark on-street spaces in the public right-of-way as visitor or any other designation. There's no way to enforce whether, a car is a visitor spot or otherwise, and we don't have those capabilities. So anyone can use a parking space in the public right-of-way, but the development is able, if they would like, in the amenity area or otherwise, to provide off-street parking that is designated as visitor.
That helps. Something to consider. So I know there's a condo right in Uptown that was part of an earlier discussion off of Cedar Street. You have the owners have designated parking. They have parking passes where whether you purchased or it was a part of the original deal, since this was many years ago, if they have a guest, they know a designated numbered parking space. This is where my guests can park, and say 23, here's the little parking pass that you need to put on your dashboard to clarify it. That is also a way on the front end that I would hope you would take as a consideration, that may help to offset some of it, just trying to think of the possible what ifs, so that you don't have the unintended consequences conversation later. Because there are ways of doing it that we have language around, and that has been done for other developments that have been proven to be successful, and that's helped for the residents to actually track, so that you don't have someone that comes in and just parks and stays there, or it's a home that has more than 2 vehicles when there's only space for 2. I do appreciate the fact that you have the option to have a 2-car garage for some individuals, but would just like to clarify with staff what the challenge may be and share that hopefully that could be a consideration to just look into.
Yes, ma'am, that's a point taken, and we'll consider it.
Thank you. No more questions.
We haven't heard all the speakers.
That was it.
Yes, we
That's
have.
it.
We heard
did.
from Tony and.
They combined.
Yes.
Tony's
They
not
said
on.
She's
10
in
minutes.
support of it.
So they don't want to, you guys
She
don't want to
right
speak? Okay. I was waiting on them, okay, then I'm sorry, I was waiting on them.
Everybody is ready to be there for you,
Did
Antoinette.
you have a
go.
question?
Well, I
Or
wanted.
comments?
Yeah, I had comments, I was
Okay,
waiting
go
for all
ahead.
the speakers, I'm sorry, that's why I was waiting, okay.
Hang on.
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm
Go
sorry, I
ahead.
didn't hear what she said. What was her
She
question?
was signed up to speak, she was for it, but the 10 minutes were taken, so now,
Correct, she's part of,
yeah,
she's the
part of
property
the
owner.
team.
Okay. All right, okay.
Stop leaving room.
Okay, so what I want to say, first of all, thank you to the District 4 Coalition. I have a few members that are here today. If you all can stand up, the members of the coalition.
Yeah, go coalition.
Thank you. It's like they're cotillion, right? They're coming out. So the District 4 Coalition is a group of residents from different subdivisions and neighborhoods in District 4. So I'm very honored that they're here. This is actually the first time that they've spoken out for or against the petition. We did have a community meeting. It was well attended. There is a subdivision similar to this petition called Glenmere, and we had some Glenmere residents, and Juan is one of those. So I am going to be meeting with the developer and those residents so we can get some questions answered regarding the similarities to this petition from that one. So I look forward to our next discussion. I do have a question for Brandon. During that meeting, and I think you clarified it today, you said that there would be 3 parking spaces for each.
Yes, ma'am. So that's what we were re-clarifying is, if I can go back one slide. Like I say, we are committed to basically 4, keep in mind garages count, actual surface parking spaces count. So this would be a 2-car garage, 2 surface parking spaces. When it comes to the front load, as we shared, it's a 1-car garage base. And then we were looking at, we were indicating that we were going to do 2 parking spaces. But what we'd like to do is it's going to be a 1-car parking space baseline, but we'd like to have it as a buyer option if they want a second, just for presentation purposes. 'Cause if you look at a 22-foot townhome and we put a 16-foot wide driveway, you're going to see nothing but front yards of concrete, and we're trying to give the buyer that option and that choice.
I appreciate that clarification because I drove through Glenmere and the parking or the driveways looked like they were only 1-car driveways.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
okay.
So there's ways to do it, and the city's been very specific with CDOT and urban planning. We have to maintain a planning strip within the right-of-way, so it's, it goes from a 1-car, expands to a 2, and so it can get a little funky, if you will. But again, we think it's best for each buyer based on their need, if they want that option or they just want to have a 1-car garage, 1-car driveway on those fronts.
Okay, well, thank you, and we can talk offline.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all. Thank you. Move to close.
Thank you. I have a motion to close in second. All in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? That's unanimous. We'll move on to agenda item number 30, petition number 2024-013 by Above and Beyond Students, Inc. The location is approximately .24 acres located on the west side of Park Road, south of Seneca Place, and north of Cortland Road in District 6, Mr. Bakari's district. The current zoning is OFC. Proposed zoning is CAC 1. Staff recommend Kimbrough will have 3 minutes in aggregate to speak to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Petition 2024-013 is just about a 1/4 acre located on the west side of Park Road, south of Seneca Place, and north of Cortland Road. Current zoning is OFC. Proposed zoning is CAC 1, conventional. The 2040 policy map recommends community activity center place type. Petition is consistent with that place type recommendation. Staff recommends approval, and I will take any questions after the petitioner's comments.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. I'm Don Williams. I'm Director for the Above and Beyond Students, and we are looking to, yes, get it rezoned. As he said, it's a OFC, and we want to get it to a CAC 1 so that whoever's a buyer can have more restrictions placed upon them, and we think that we can make that it'll be a better chance for the property to be sold. We have just really outgrown that. Well, no, we really not outgrow it. We just don't need that space anymore. And we would like to take the resources that we can get and put it into the students that we serve.
Excellent. Any questions?
Move to close. Second.
I have a motion to close and second. I will say, this is not in my district, but I live very close to this area, so I'm very familiar with this particular parcel and the activity around it. So, all in favor of closing the public hearing, raise hands. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. We'll move on to agenda item number 32, petition number 2024-022 by QTR Development Partners and Sunset Road Partners, LLC. The location is approximately 12.11 acres located on the south side of Sunset Road in the east side of Oakdale Road in District 2, Mr. Graham's district. The current zoning is N1A. Proposed zoning is N2ACD. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation and environment. After staff's presentation, Ms. Grant will have 3 minutes to speak to this. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Petition 2024-022 is located on the south side of Sunset Road, east of Oakdale Road. The site's approximately 12.11 acres in size and is currently developed with 2 single-family dwellings. The current zoning is N1A, Neighborhood 1. The proposed zoning is N2ACD, Neighborhood 2 conditional. 2040 policy map recommends the Neighborhood 1 place type for this site. The N2A district is inconsistent with the N1 place type. Approval of this petition would revise the 2040 policy map recommendation to the Neighborhood 2 place type. The proposal calls for 110 multifamily attached dwellings and 4 duplex lots for a maximum of 118 units. The buildings are limited to no more than 5 dwelling units per building, with a maximum of 24 buildings to be developed on the site. The site's internal tree plantings will include a minimum 40 trees planted along the proposed internal alleyway network, and at a minimum spacing of 40 feet on center. The following transportation improvements are proposed. Vehicular access to the site is proposed via a new public street off of Sunset Road, which will be a street extension of McCullough Meadows Drive. There's also a proposed stub street extending to the western property line here. Left turn lane will be with 150 feet of storage will be built on Sunset Road at the intersection with the new public street. A 12-foot multi-use path and an 8-foot planting strip will be constructed along Sunset Road. And the following architectural requirements are proposed. Windows, doors, porches are required on all front-facing facades to avoid appearance of blank walls. Blank walls are limited to no more than 20 feet on buildings abutting Sunset Road, McCullough Meadows Drive, and internal network required streets. End units will have side facades with a minimum transparency of 25% at ground level and 15% on upper levels. Buildings will incorporate articulated facades and architectural features such as balconies, bay windows, etc. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation and environment, as the proposed development would fill a need for housing in the area and that has been identified by the 2040 Comprehensive Plan as lacking opportunities for access to housing, and the site is located within a half mile of a designated neighborhood center. Happy to take any questions following Ms. Grant's presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Grant?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. Bridget Grant, land use consultant with Moran Van Allen, pleased to be here tonight on behalf of QTR Development, also being supported by Matt Langston with Landworks. Staff did a great job on their presentation. I know you all have been in meetings for a long time, so I'm just going to pull up our site plan and tell you that we're happy to answer any questions. One other thing that I did want to point out is that while we're inconsistent with the surrounding land use, there's a substantially large parcel to our east that's zoned with a classification in a form that's actually more consistent with the N2 place type, so we are connecting to some other townhomes on the rear of our site into the other community.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Mayfield?
Ms. Grant, do you know if this is going to be for sale or for rent product?
That hasn't been determined at this time.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Move close public hearing.
I have a motion to close public hearing and second. All in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Grant. We'll move on to agenda item number 33, petition number 2024-030 by Asana Partners LP. The location is approximately 0.39 acres, located on a northwest intersection of South Sharon-Amity Road and Randolph Road, south of Woodlark Lane in District 6, Mr. Bakari's district. The current zoning is CC. Proposed zoning is NC. Staff recommends the approval of this petition, and after staff's presentation, Mr. McVeigh will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, petition 2024-030 is located in the northwest intersection of South Sharon-Amity Road, Randolph Road, and south of Woodlark Lane. The site's approximately 0.39 acres and is currently developed with a surface parking lot. The site is a portion of a property zone CC, commercial center conditional. The proposed zoning is NC, neighborhood center, conventional zoning district. 2040 policy map recommends the neighborhood center place type. The NC district is consistent with the NC place type. This is a conventional rezoning petition. There's not an associated site plan and would permit any uses allowed in this NC district. Staff recommends approval of this petition as the NC district permits a variety of uses that are in keeping with the character of the area, and the NC district will utilize UDO standards that are more human scale and pedestrian oriented than existing legacy zoning standards on the site. I'm happy to take any questions following Mr. McVain's presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. Keith McVain with Moore Van Allen, assisting Asana Partners. With me tonight and available to answer questions is Welch Lyles. Max has done a good job describing the site location, just about a third of an acre, part of Cotswold Village along Sharon Amity, currently zoned CC. The proposed zoning is NC, which will allow Asana Partners to add an additional building to the Cotswold Village shopping center. This zoning district does not allow uses with accessory drive-through windows. As we are consistent with the place type, and as mentioned in the staff analysis, the NC zoning district will allow Cotswold Village to transition from a what's the words they actually use? My apologies. From a mid-century shopping center auto-oriented to a more pedestrian-friendly shopping center as the area transitions and becomes more urbanized. We do have an example of how we think the site would be used here, where the buildings would lay out on the site along Sharon Amity, proposed possibly up to 2 tenants, elevation that potentially of what the building would look like. We're happy to answer questions.
Excellent. Any questions or comments?
Move to close. Second.
I have a motion to close public hearing and second. All in favor, raise hands.
Thank you.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. McVain. We move on to agenda item number 34, petition number 2024-032 by Troy Knight. The location approximately 0.17 acres, located on the west side of Montgomery Street, north of Fraser Avenue, and east of West Trade Street in District 2, Mr. Graham's district. The current zoning is NC. Proposed zoning is N2B. Staff recommends the approval of this petition, and after staff's presentation, Mr. Knight will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. The site is an approximately 7,500 square foot lot located on the west side of Montgomery Street, approximately 275 feet east of Trade Street and 120 feet west of Fraser. The site is undeveloped, and the surrounding development pattern is a mix of non-residential development predominantly located along Trade Street, as well as multifamily stacked and garden apartments. The current zoning of the site is NC, and the proposed zoning is N2B. The zoning in the immediate vicinity is NC, which captures the sites that are in proximity to Trade Street, and N2B, which includes all property to the east of the subject site. The place type of the site and vicinity is neighborhood center. Staff recommends approval of this petition, given the relatively small size of the parcel that would allow development consistent with adjacent parcel to the east, zoned N2B, and the site is within a half-mile walk to the Lynx Gold Line stop. The petition is inconsistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation for neighborhood center, and approval of this petition would revise the place type to neighborhood 2. Here, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Knight, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, members of council. So surprisingly, I'm here to reduce density. I know that's rare to hear from an infill developer, but that's exactly what we want to do. Right now it's zoned NC, so 5 units or more for residential. In order to accomplish that, we'd have to develop over 5,000 square foot, which then triggers stormwater ordinance, which then triggers the additional cost per unit, therefore raising the cost of residential housing in our already existential crisis here. So we're hoping to reduce all of that by reducing it down to 2 units and marketing something a little bit more affordable than what you would normally find in this area for a brand new home with a garage, 4 bedrooms. These are the plans that we plan to use. This isn't a conditional zoning, but that's just there for reference. Those are blueprints we already have drawn up that we'd like to use. It reduces the impervious from 66% down to roughly 37%. Provides 2 large backyards, more parking spaces, and just overall less density. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you. So what you're showing us is both a combination of duplex as well as single-family?
No,
Or
ma'am, this would be
either
a
or?
duplex sold as a townhome. Each unit would be sold, so 2 townhomes essentially.
Okay, so,
In the real
oh,
estate.
you're just doing a comparison of what a single-family home
So this
would
is
be in-
this right
in
here is a
pervious area.
duplex, yeah. It's, I don't know the real term, so in real estate, we call it a duet. So they're sold as individual townhomes, so you
Yeah.
own your land from the road to the backyard, and then the structure. So it's not exactly a condo or a true duplex, but it still qualifies as single-family under the UDO and building code.
Okay, clarification with staff. So that's what we classify duets as? We still classify those under single-family?
No, this would be single-family attached. Or duplex.
Duets. Okay, thank you.
Learn something new every day. Close
Move to
public hearing.
close. We have a motion to close public hearing and second. All in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item number 35, petition number 2024-034 by Jackson Castle LLC. The location is approximately .37 acres, located on the north side and south side of Bearwood Ave and east side of East Sugar Creek Road, west of Eastway Drive in District 1, my district. The current zoning is CG. Proposed zoning is N1C. Staff recommends the approval of this petition, and after staff's presentation, Mr. Gross will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. This site is 1/3 of an acre on the north and south sides of Bearwood Avenue. It's also just south of the Lynx Blue Line and west of the Sugar Creek Station. This is in the Howie Acres neighborhood. The majority of the area to the south and the east is residential in nature, and then there's some commercial and industrial developments to the west. It's currently zoned general commercial, and they're proposing to go to neighborhood 1C, which is consistent with the policy map's recommendation for neighborhood 1 at this site and the adjacent residential properties. It's a conventional petition, so we don't have a site plan. The existing neighborhood is largely zoned in 1C, so this petition would bring the site into alignment with that existing zoning in the residential area. And that also would allow for a more consistent development pattern. Though the site is currently zoned CG as a result of the legacy ordinance B1 district translating to CG, the uses allowed in that CG zoning district could include auto-centric commercial developments that would be generally undesirable in this neighborhood, given its single-family character and location along a two-lane local street. Staff recommends this petition. I'll take any questions following the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Grass?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council and the Zoning Committee. Nolan Gross with Urban Design Partners, representing Jackson Castle LLC on rezoning petition 2024-034. You can see the site here on the northern side of Bearwood Avenue as it exists today, followed by the southern side, which has some existing foliage. Holly did a great job explaining this petition. This is a conventional rezoning petition on both sides of Bearwood Avenue, requesting to rezone from general commercial to neighborhood 1C for consistency with the area. It is consistent with the 2040 policy map, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. My first question is, I see that there are no people who attended the community meeting. What has been your level of engagement with the community?
We have received 0 feedback thus far. We've tried to engage the Howie Acres community on multiple occasions and received no feedback.
Okay. I will follow up as well, but I would like for you to follow up with Ms. Roma Johnson. She is the head of the Howie Acres Neighborhood Association, and she's normally very much engaged. So I just want to make sure that this is on the Neighborhood Association's radar. To ensure that they have proper feedback. Are there any additional questions?
We close.
Second, I have a motion to close public hearing in second. All in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Gross. We'll move on to agenda item number 36, petition number 2024-036 by Julio Barrega. The location is approximately .23 acres located on the west side of Westerly Hills Drive, north of Wilkinson Boulevard, and south of Blessing Street in District 3, Ms. Brown's district. The current zoning is N1D and CG. Proposed zoning is NCCD. Staff approves the recommendation of this petition, and after staff's presentation, Fabia Sister will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Petition 2024-036 is approximately 0.23 acres located on the west side of Westerly Hills Drive, north of Wilkinson Boulevard, and south of Blessing Street. Current zoning is split zoned N1D to the north and CG to the south. Proposed zoning is NCCD. 2040 policy map recommends neighborhood 1 place type. There is no site plan, but the development standards associated with the petition limit the use to office and accessory uses and limits building height to 40 feet. Staff recommends approval. It is inconsistent with the policy map recommendation for neighborhood 1 place type. However, the proposed neighborhood center zoning district and place type would provide an appropriate transition from the neighborhood 1 place type to the north and west of the site and community activity center place type to the south and east. The development standards accompanying the petition limit uses to office and accessory uses. Proposed office is an appropriate transitional use between more intense commercial uses to the south and east of the site, and established residential uses to the north and the west. Petition limits building height to 40 feet, which matches the maximum building height of the N1D zoned parcels to the north and west of the site. Also is a site is a quarter mile from existing bus stops along Wilkinson Boulevard and a half mile from a proposed CAT Silver Line station. The approval would revise the recommended place type from neighborhood 1 place type to neighborhood center. And I'll be happy to take any questions after the petitioner's comments.
Thank you. Ms. Suster, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Fabia Suster, and I represent Blue Cardinal Investment. We're a small minority-owned plumbing company that has proudly served the Charlotte region for over 17 years. Our goal has been and is to get a permanent office space to continue serving our community effectively. That's why we are here requesting a rezoning from N1D to NCCD, and I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I do.
Ms. Brown?
Yes, thanks. Thank you so much. Like to see a small family business. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I appreciate that. Looking over it, I know there's no site map available yet. You said you're going to use this for small office space for your family business that's been in.
Yeah, we are a plumbing company, and we have been since 2007 as a company.
You said 2007?
Seven,
Okay,
correct.
so what are you going to do in the office space?
It's just like an administrative office, just to have ourselves and one estimator.
Just an office space for people to inquire about your business?
Yeah, we're not changing any of the building or anything.
And just one other question. So I saw where transportation said it's going to be an estimate of 15 trips per day. Is that right, staff?
Let me just
Did I see
double
that?
check that number.
I know everybody in this map, the pictures that y'all take, that area, the entire area. Very close to the folks that live on that street, up there by the T-Mobile. On the backside, it says 15 trips per day based on one family single dwelling.
So the existing use generates 15 trips per day. The entitled use which includes a piece of the parcel that's zoned commercial, could generate 410 trips per day. The office use could generate 157 trips per day.
That's just proposed, so if it's just an office space, why would it generate 157 trips?
That's if they maximize the buildable area of the property for a 10,000 square foot office building.
Okay, and I know that it's just an office space in this, is it in the strip mall that I'm looking at, adjacent to T-Mobile, or?
It is on the west side of Westerly Hills. Maybe, Emma, if we could pull the map back up, the Google map. So it is on the opposite side of Westerly Hills from the shopping center.
Okay, so is there?
It's a single-family home, is what is there now.
Okay, all right. You said it's a single-family home there now?
That's correct.
Okay, so I just want to go in the area and take a look at it. I know the area pretty well. And one final question that I have, I know there were only 3 people in attendance at the community meeting, but that doesn't mean that, that there's an interest in what's going on in the area. Were you at the meeting? Or do you have any notes from the community meeting?
I was not at the meeting.
I sent the notes.
You sent them to me?
I think so. I sent the meeting invitation, and I uploaded it to the Excel.
When was the meeting?
I don't have it right now, but it was like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
April 22nd.
That wouldn't have got past me. I didn't get an invitation to a meeting.
Yeah, I don't know if you have the.
In Westerly Hills, a community meeting? Okay,
yes.
no problem. I just want to see the community notes.
Yes.
I don't know what I was doing and why I wasn't there, but I just want to see the notes from the community.
Of course.
To see what their questions was.
Yeah.
I have no further questions. Move to close.
Second. I have a motion to close public hearing and second. All in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Suster.
Yes.
We will move on to agenda item number 37, petition number 2024-038 by Cambridge Properties, Inc. The location is approximately 3.02 acres located on a northwest intersection of West W.T. Harris and David Lake Parkway, south of David Cox Road in District 2, Mr. Graham's district. The current zoning is CC, proposed zoning is CG. Staff recommends the approval of this petition, and after staff's presentation, Ms. Meredith Richmond and Mr. John Priester will have 3 minutes to present. Thank you.
Petition 2024-038 is located on the northwest intersection of W.T. Harris Boulevard and Davis Lake Parkway, south of David Cox Road. The site is approximately 3.02 acres and is currently undeveloped. The site is a portion of a property zone CC, Commercial Center Conditional. The proposed zoning is CG, General Commercial, a conventional zoning district. The 2040 policy map recommends the commercial place type. The CG zoning district is consistent with the commercial place type. Staff recommends approval of this petition as the CG district is consistent with the comprehensive plan, permits a variety of uses that are in keeping with the character of the area, which is generally auto-oriented, but provides standards that accommodate other travel modes. And the site is walkable to nearby neighborhoods as well as directly adjacent to daily needs. The site could increase the amenities, goods, services offered at the existing shopping center. Happy to take any questions following the petitioner's presentation if they have one.
Thank you. Mr. Priester or Ms. Richmond?
Good evening, Mayor Perry Tim, members of City Council, and members of the Zoning Committee. I'm Jay Priester with Cambridge Properties. This is the last remaining parcel of our Davis Lake Shopping Center. It's been fully developed, and we had a very specific conditional zoning for this parcel when we were working with a specific tenant who is no longer there. This zoning was originally approved in 2014, so now we are just taking it to the GC zoning district, which is consistent with the 2040 policy plan, and happy to answer any questions to the petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Let's close public hearing.
I have a motion to close public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Priester. We move on to the final agenda item of the evening, agenda item number 38, rezoning number 2024-039 by Gethsemane Cemetery and Memorial Gardens. The location is approximately 10.65 acres located on the east side of West Sugar Creek Road and north side of the Roman Road, west of Mineral Springs in District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. The current zoning is N1B. Proposed zoning is IC1. Staff recommends the approval of this petition, and after staff's presentation, Mr. David Murray. Is this, Mr. David Murray's here? Why don't you come on down? You will have 10 minutes to speak to this because we do have Mr. Joseph Margolis, who is signed up to speak in opposition, and he will have 10 minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The subject site includes 3 non-contiguous parcels that together comprise approximately 10.65 acres, located on the east side of West Sugar Creek Road, north of the Roman Road. The subject parcels contain single-family homes, and surrounding development includes cemetery and memorial gardens and single-family residential development. South of the Roman Road, there are more non-residential uses, which include hotels, restaurants, and a gas station. The subject parcels are zoned N1B, and the proposed zone is Institutional Campus 1. Surrounding zoning includes N1B on the west side of Sugar Creek as well as to the north. Zoning transitions to CG south of the Roman Road as you approach the I-85 interchange. Property to the north and east of the subject parcels is zoned institutional conditional. It is improved with a cemetery, memorial gardens, and a church. The 2040 policy map recommends the neighborhood 1 place type for the subject parcels as well as for the property to the west and north. The campus place type for the cemetery property and the mix of neighborhood 2 and commercial place types are also found to the south of the site, which aligns with the existing mix of multi-dwelling and commercial uses in the area. It's a conventional petition and requests all uses permitted by right and under prescribed conditions in the IC1 zone. Staff recommends approval as the proposed zone is consistent and compatible with the existing zoning of the adjacent cemetery and would allow these parcels under common ownership with the cemetery to be incorporated into the larger site for a more unified development pattern. The petition is inconsistent with the neighborhood 1 place type, and approval of this rezoning would revise the recommended place type to campus. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Murray?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. David Murray, I'm an attorney who represents the property owner as well as the cemetery. The Gouch family has been a benefactor of Gethsemane Cemetery and Memorial Gardens as well as Northside Baptist Church for many years. And as you can see, if you could shift to the aerial that shows the adjacent, maybe one more back, please. There is a master plan cemetery development that is institutional conditional that exists to the east of this property. Back when this was all rezoned in 1996, these parcels at the front were not owned by the church or the Gouch family. Since that time, the Gouch family has been slowly buying up these properties. And so, I think some of the first discussions on this were back in 2017, I believe, is that when I first met them. And as part of some future planning, we are seeking to have this rezoned so that it's consistent with the adjacent rezoning, so that cemetery uses can be made of these properties. To the rear of several of these properties, there's already some use that's been made just over the years that's been grandfathered. So again, this is to bring everything consistent with that adjacent plan next door, so that there could be future expansion, because the office for the cemetery is very small, and the hope is potentially in the future to have a funeral home location there. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'm not going to take my full 10 minutes here.
Thank you. Mr. Margolis, you have 10 minutes.
Can you go forward to the slide with the 3 stars on it? All right, so thank you again for seeing me again. This is, I guess, last but not least, but I've been before you 3 times today. I'm against this just on one sticking point. It's in the site plan, the community notes presentation, but part of the master plan does involve at some point an active senior living facility or hospice or something along those lines. Is that correct, David? Okay. So, and that parcel is not part of this rezoning, but what I would like to see from the petitioner, and I think, and I believe that it's already happening. I'm getting feedback from David that it's already happening, so I'm pleased to say that. It's just with in exchange for the loss of land that could be used for housing, just that the owner look for some opportunities to trade off that would be beneficial to their business. And there may be one opportunity. I've reached out. There's a parcel that's, there we go. That right there, I believe that's Mineral Springs Road right there on the map. Well, did I do that? How did I? Wow, okay. That parcel, there's a section of it that used to be a recreational center when it was owned by Northside Baptist Church. Due to certain requirements for the land use to be a cemetery that can hold buildings, I've learned, certain buildings like certain businesses that they want to operate, like the funeral home and the active senior living facility, they have to maintain 100 acres of cemetery. So that's part of what all this is. But if there's some way for the county and the city to work with the zoning, it would be nice that that could be preserved for a park. And Kevin Brickman at the Parks has expressed some interest in the Parks Department buying that portion of that larger 24-acre parcel. And something like that might be a good trade-off. That being said, sounds like it may not very well work for their business model. What I would like to see in this, and I don't know if this has anything to do with what you could consider, is just that I would like to see the petitioner just show some willingness to consider options that might work for them. Because it is their land, and I guess if you want to have control over land-making decisions, the best way to do that is to own it, and I do admit, I do own up to that. So so I'm asking for support from the council in facilitating that as best you can, in a way that doesn't disrupt the business, what should happen. So that's my only sticking point at this point for not supporting it, and I see David working towards getting some communications going with the parks, and so I look forward to removing my opposition shortly. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murray, you have a 2-minute rebuttal.
Mr. Margolis and I have been talking some. One of the issues that the cemetery has is to have a funeral home or any other type of accessory uses, you have to have 100 acres of cemetery. And there's only 118 acres out on that site. And so it's a very tight site. And so that area that was that's up in the corner that's clear, that we were discussing about with a park, was some ball fields at one time that were neglected, as well as down here. And in a 2017 administrative amendment of the master plan, those were changed into cemetery areas. And so I've reached out to the county. We're willing to talk. It's just we do have a practical issue with not being so right on the 100 acre minimum. Because if we start giving up too much, if we want to have that funeral home, that doesn't count towards the cemetery. So if there's parking and things like that. So, but as far as this rezoning goes, these
parcels are separate from the parcel that we're talking about on the rear, where there used to be a ball field. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Ms. Johnson?
Just a comment. Thank you, Mr. Margolis, for your patience and your engagement tonight and always. And Mr. Murray, we can talk offline.
Sure.
I know that was a concern during the community meeting.
Sure.
From Mr. Margolis and the other Derrida.
Yep.
Or some of the other Derrida residents. So we can certainly talk offline. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Move to close.
Thank you. Just a question, Ms. Johnson. Well, inside of our packet, it says 3 individuals attended the public meeting. Was there a different public meeting?
There was one public meeting, Mr. Margolis, Ms. McDonald, who's from the Derrida Association, and Councilmember Johnson attended.
Okay.
I
Okay.
count too.
Of course you count, absolutely.
I always make
Absolutely.
sure to include council.
I was going to make sure that Ms. McDonald was involved, and also, even though this is across the highway, it would be interesting to just get some engagement from the Sugar Creek Business Association that's newly formed, as we've stood up the corridors of opportunity, to hear their perspective and get some insights from them as well.
Yeah, fortunately, I got to meet Mr. Margolis and Ms. McDonald on a previous rezoning that I had years ago that we were able to work together on. Unfortunately, it never came to fruition because of COVID and other factors. It was a wedding venue that was in Derrida, but it just unfortunately never happened. But yeah, so Councilmember Johnson will be in touch. I appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I have a motion to close public hearing in second. All in favor, raise hands. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Motion to close meetings.
Yes.
That is unanimous. Everyone go home
Yes.
and watch some basketball potentially.